Chapter 1756. The unsetting sun was extremely fast. In just a few minutes, it had traveled 100,000 miles and was only 1,000 miles away from the arrival. Then, not only the soldiers on the battleships of the Myth Alliance saw it, but also the billions of people on Earth saw it through the images sent back by the large surveillance Dharma artifacts. Zhao Xueqing walked out of the cabin and stood proudly on the unsetting sun. One person and one battleship faced the endless army of the Beihan sect. It was as if a peerless sword had been unsheathed. The sword light was 100,000 miles away. At this moment, everyone on Earth was speechless. Countless people were dumbfounded and shocked. They were so moved that tears streamed down their faces. She's so magnanimous. She's worthy of being Jiang Taichu's woman. Old Rulai Lotus's blood was boiling, and his mind was agitated. He felt that all the women he had seen in the past 1,000 years paled in comparison to Zhao Xueqing. Looks like you are the legendary Mrs. Jiang. The arrival slowed down and finally stopped 100 miles away from Zhao Xueqing. An old man with white hair and a white beard in a simple linen robe stepped out. The laws around him surged, and he gave people a feeling that he was in control of the world. Divine Lord Wuya. He appeared. He stood proudly in the void in front of the ship. His eyes were as deep as the stars. He looked down at Zhao Xueqing and said in a low voice, "Are you not afraid of us? Aren't you afraid of death?" "I'm not afraid of death. Why do you have to be afraid of death?" Zhao Xueqing's clothes fluttered and she said calmly, "My husband is in seclusion and has no time to entertain guests from afar. So I, as the hostess, should be the one to meet you. Otherwise, wouldn't it be too rude?" "I didn't expect a woman to be so bold," Divine Lord Wuya exclaimed. "Kong Taichu has a cultivation partner like you. I'm so envious. Cut the crap. My husband ordered you to leave the solar system, but it seems like you treat it as a joke. So be it. Today, I will show you the strength of the human race on Earth. I will also let you know that Earth is not something that you rascals can covet." After Zhao Xueqing finished speaking, she suddenly soared into the sky. Long saber. Unsheathing. This saber was called Flowing Fire. It was made from the 9 flying swords that Jiang Tian had given her. It had killed more than a dozen soul formation divine lords when it fought against the heavenly Mu divine general and the other overlords of the ruins of immortality. Over the past few years, it had been continuously infused with heavenly materials and earthly treasures. After meeting up with Jiang Tian in the ruins of immortality, Jiang Tian had refined it many times and it had reached the level of a Dao artifact. "Stupid woman, do you really want to fight against the entire fleet of the Beihan sect by yourself?" Sir God Wuya found it funny and shook his head. His eyes were filled with contempt. In the face of a strong enemy, having a backbone and fighting spirit was naturally worthy of respect. However, if he still didn't know how to be flexible and fought to the death when faced with an opponent with a great disparity in strength, he would be an idiot who didn't know what death was. She's courting death. Stupid people from Earth. Countless cultivators on the descender shook their heads and sneered. In their eyes, Zhao Xueqing was like an idiot who was throwing an egg at a rock. "Yes, so what?" Zhao Xueqing quickly closed in and shouted while waving her saber. As she shook her blade, countless Dharma laws rumbled and the sky within a 10-mile radius shook. The stars in the sky swayed as if they were about to fall. Inside her body, the divine treasures rumbled and the deity shouted. A giant shadow of a divine phoenix formed by deity-grade Dharma laws appeared behind her. Then, it was infused into her body, providing her with endless energy to fight. Her deity body let out a bright light. "What? She's a soul formation grand cultivator? I can't believe there's a soul formation grand cultivator on Earth with no cultivation methods." Divine Lord Wuya looked surprised. His deep eyes glittered and there was a hint of solemnity and admiration on his face. Earth was in the early stages of the spirit chi recovery. Its essence chi was rich and its Dharma laws were solid, comparable to the cultivation's sacred grounds in the Beidou Star region and even the Milky Way, which could help cultivators advance rapidly. However, the problem was that Earth's spirit chi had been declining for more than 100,000 years, ever since planet destruction arrived. The spirit chi was exhausted and the Dharma laws collapsed. For a cultivation civilization, it was like water without a source or a tree without roots. It couldn't support itself. So, even if Earth was full of spirit chi, it couldn't cultivate powerful cultivators. Golden core cultivators were extremely rare and nascent soul cultivators were already at the peak. So, when Divine Lord Huia saw a soul formation cultivator, he was shocked, as if a Harvard student had appeared in a primitive tribe on Earth. This must be the cultivation art Kang Techu taught her. But her speed of improvement is too terrifying. A soul formation grand cultivator under 100 years old is extremely rare even in the Beidou Star region. Kang Techu must be killed. Otherwise, he'll become a big problem sooner or later. Many thoughts flashed through Divine Lord Huia's mind. He became more serious and his viciousness became more intense. The divine treasures in his body rumbled and the vast power of Dharma laws gathered, causing the air within a few miles to collapse and distort. It was earth-shattering. Zhao Xueqing moved along with her saber and displayed the divine phoenix dance of the ninth heaven footwork which had reached the pinnacle. Her speed was extremely fast and she covered a distance of 100 miles in the blink of an eye. Before Sir God Wu Ye made his move, Zhao Xueqing had already struck out with her saber. The 100-foot divine blade slashed the air and burned everything like a fire. Looking from afar, the indestructible dimension was suddenly split open, forming a space hole. Each of the fiery blade auras was like a feather of a divine phoenix. They could penetrate a nascent soul cultivator and kill a heavenly lord. There were thousands of them. Those phoenix feather-like blade auras were flowing with colorful lights like flowing flames and emitted a scorching aura. It was another divine power of Zhao Xueqing, the fire phoenix eyes, which had evolved into the power of Dharma laws. Even though they were 1,000 miles away, it made people feel as if their skin was about to crack and their blood was about to dry up. It was as if the blade was right in front of them. Divine Lord Huia faced the blade head-on and felt as if his body, divine treasures, and even the entire world were about to be split open. There seemed to be nothing in the world except for the blade that fell from the sky. Break. Boundless, immeasurable. Divine Sovereign Boundless roared. The rumbling sound of his divine treasures was like the ringing of a great bell. The laws around his body surged violently like raging waves crashing against the shore. Behind him, boundless laws were being drawn out, forming a pitch-black void with a radius of 10 miles. When the hole was formed, the space immediately shattered and terrifying space cracks spread across the sky, tearing everything apart. In an instant, the space was annihilated and collapsed, forming a horrifying space storm. The mountain-like descender sped forward and almost fell into the chaotic hole and was torn apart by the space cracks. The endless Dharma laws turned into a golden dragon of Dharma laws that was a few hundred feet long. It soared into the sky and turned 9 times in the sky, trying to block Zhao Xueqing's blade. However, Zhao Xueqing had the stainless phoenix fairy body and had reached the soul formation realm. Although she was only at the early stage of the soul formation realm, how could Divine Lord Huia, a 9th-grade soul formation realm Divine Lord, withstand her furious blade attack? It was like an 8-year-old child being smarter than an ape. Strictly speaking, a soul formation realm Divine Lord and an ordinary soul formation realm Divine Lord were not on the same level. Boom! With a loud bang, the golden dragon and the flowing fire blade collided. In the sky, the blade aura of the flowing fire blade and the golden dragon of Dharma laws clashed, devouring and destroying each other. Although the golden dragon of Dharma laws was powerful and there were endless Dharma laws gathering in it, it was still split open by the slash. With an indomitable and unstoppable momentum, the long saber slashed at Sir God Wu Ye's original body. Huia, go! At that moment, Divine Lord Huia was enraged and he launched all kinds of Dharma laws. Nomological laws manifested one after another. Flood dragons, ferocious beasts, divine shields, lightning bolts, mountains, and so on. They all tried to stop the flowing fire saber, but they all crumbled and shattered under the saber. Back off! In the end, Divine Lord Huia had no choice but to step into the sky and hide in the sky, retreating 100 miles away and barely dodging Zhao Xueqing's slash. The descender couldn't dodge in time and a giant hole was torn open. Fire burned the sky and countless nascent soul heavenly lords died in an instant. Only a few hundred nascent soul cultivators escaped in small flying ships. With one slash, the descender and the divine lord from another planet retreated 100 miles. Furthermore, even though Sir God Wuya had dodged the attack and didn't injure his core, he was still in a very sorry state. His silver hair and beard were burnt black and curled up. His simple hemp clothes were torn and tattered. Even his crystal-clear body that was like porcelain had traces of being burnt and cracked. The divine phoenix's flowing fire dharma laws kept running on his wounds, as if it were an indestructible purgatory world. Even though he used all kinds of dharma laws to heal himself, he still couldn't do anything. Mistress is invincible. She's a peerless beauty. She's so powerful. There's hope for Earth. Earth won't be destroyed. She's indeed Kong Techu's woman. I never thought that not only did Kong Techu have a divine lord, but his wife has also become a divine lord. Even the divine lord from another planet was defeated by her slash. Both of them are peerless divine lords. What a story! When the image of the battle was transmitted to Earth, billions of people on the planet cheered and their emotions immediately changed from despair to excitement. Countless people were so excited that they burst into tears. They waved their arms and cheered. Their shouts shook the sky and stirred up the clouds. What an evil woman! Divine Lord Wuya was so angry that his hair stood on end. He couldn't accept such a failure. He was the sect master of the Wuya sect, a peak-stage soul formation cultivator and the vanguard of Han Ming, a Zhongzi from the Beihan sect, but he was defeated by a woman from Earth. That feeling was like a brawny man being knocked down by a 3-year-old girl with a brick. What a disgrace. He felt he had lost all his face. How could he not be angry? However, before Sir God Wuya could regroup and attack, Zhao Xueqing's clear and melodious voice suddenly rang in his ears. "Old man, you'd better catch it." The second slash. Whoosh. As Zhao Xueqing slashed out, the sky trembled as if it was about to be torn apart. Flowing fire rained down and filled the sky with Li fire, converging into a peerless flaming saber that was about 3,000 meters long. An aura that was even more ferocious and violent than before surged on the battlefield. It seemed to be able to burn the sky and melt everything in the world. Is this divine monarch possessed? How can I meet such a vicious woman? Then, Sir God Wuya's face changed, and he looked extremely upset. Chapter 1757. He had never thought that Zhao Xueqing would be so terrifying before he came. Of course, they had also learned about Jiang Tian and his wife's achievements from Jeffrey, Ji Muxian and the others on Earth, including how they crushed the ruins of deity, but they didn't take them seriously. Even Luo Chen, the Zhongzi of the Saint-Era Sword sect, could become the sword god of the ruins Emperor Palace in the ruins of deity and be called the ancestral lord. And Luo Chen was nothing in front of Han Ming and Zhongzi. The empire of the immortal ruins in the Milky Way was a decadent and backward cultivation civilization. They didn't even have the ability to go out of their star field and conquer other star fields. None of them were even listed on the Milky Way list. Rumor had it that Jiang Tian had killed hundreds of soul formation cultivators in the ruins of deity, but Divine Lord Wuya still didn't take Jiang Tian seriously. Those were just ordinary soul formation cultivators without a grade. So what if they were at the peak? As a 9th grade soul formation cultivator, Divine Lord Wuya thought he was also capable of suppressing the ruins of deity on his own. He only became vigilant when he heard that Jiang Tian had killed the 4 divine lords, including Ta Jian and Gang Hua. But that was Jiang Tian, not Zhao Xueqing. So, from the start till the end, he did not take Zhao Xueqing to heart. Even if she was a soul formation cultivator when she was born, it had only been a few decades. But after the fight, he finally realized how terrifying Zhao Xueqing was. He swore that if he had known that, he wouldn't have been so careless. He would have joined forces with the other divine lords to attack Zhao Xueqing. Damn it! Divine Lord Boundless looked as if he was facing a great enemy. The precepts and great paths around him roared endlessly, almost boiling. The precepts in his body were condensed to the extreme, And the god in his body roared to the sky. From the wide sleeves of his linen robe, he took out a jade-green, crystal-clear sword that seemed to be able to measure the heavens and earth and trigger the endless great paths. As soon as the sword was drawn, all the laws and great Taos within a radius of 50 kilometers were sucked away, causing this world to be annihilated. It was as if it had been taken away out of thin air, forming an extremely deep and dark black hole that seemed to be connected to an alternate world. As for the sword, it gave off a bright light. Boundless condensed laws formed and soared into the sky. Its aura was even stronger than that of the flowing fire saber, faintly suppressing it. The sword's name is Immeasurable. It was refined by the ancestor of the Boundless Divine Sect, the Boundless Divine Lord, for 3,000 years. It is capable of condensing the boundless laws and grand Taos of the world, carrying out punishment on behalf of the heavens, wielding the heavenly Tao and transforming it into a single strike. Divine Lord Wuya raised his eyebrows and shouted proudly, "This sword has killed 33 Divine Transformation Realm Divine Lords, including 2 at the peak of the 9th grade Divine Transformation Realm. Little girl, you will be the 34th. A top-grade Tao artifact." At this moment, on Earth, Elder Pan Sheng and Yuan Zhenkong, who used to be from the Boundless Sect, were staring at the battle screen in disbelief. Boundless Divine Lord is really going all out this time. He even took out the most precious treasure of his sect. This treasure has always been sealed in the sect and is used as the base of the array. This sword is extremely fierce. It's called Immeasurable, which means it can store and use all kinds of laws. Once the sword is drawn out, it can instantly draw the laws of great Taos within a 100-mile radius and gather them into a boundless attack. It's enough to destroy the world. What? It can even activate the immeasurable laws? That's terrifying. Mistress, everyone felt chills down their spines and their hearts almost jumped out of their throats. They were all worried for Zhao Xueqing and didn't dare to think about it anymore. After Jiang Tian's preaching and the invasion of the cultivators from other planets, they already knew about it. Dharma laws and great Taos were mysterious and difficult to control. So, only 1 in 10,000 cultivators entered the nascent soul level from the golden core level. Not only did they need enough cultivation resources, they also needed special talents, great opportunities, great wisdom and perseverance to have a chance to touch a Dharma law. The classification between nascent soul and soul formation was actually based on the Dharma laws and great Taos one could touch and control. To be able to touch and activate half a strand of Dharma laws was already a grade in nascent soul. To be able to control 8 or 9 types of Dharma laws was a rank 9 nascent soul and could definitely step into soul formation. In the soul formation stage, to be able to control 8 or 9 complete Dharma laws was a rank 9 soul formation. It was clear that the more Dharma laws a cultivator could control, the more Dharma laws they could use. That was also a cultivator's pursuit. To be able to activate the immeasurable laws and draw out all the Dharma laws and great Taos in an area was extremely terrifying and unheard of. It's a bit of an exaggeration to call it the immeasurable laws, but it's still possible to activate dozens of complete Dharma laws. Han Che Shensi was more knowledgeable than Elder Pan Sheng and Yuan Zhenkong and knew some secrets, but he still didn't have it easy. But this sword is originally a creation of heaven and earth. It goes against heaven and earth, so it will naturally suffer a backlash from heaven and earth. It has to burn a god's blood essence as the price. After this sword is used, his cultivation and grade will drop permanently. Mistress, as long as you block this sword, you'll be able to kill him. Yes, as long as you block this sword. Lotus Life, Old Rely and the others all noticed that Divine Lord Boundless' chest seemed to have caved in. That should be the result of the shrinkage and collapse of the divine treasures and gods. However, facing this sword, Zhao Xueqing didn't block it at all. Instead, she continued to slash from afar without caring about her own safety. As the saber slashed down, the endless divine phoenix fire was compressed to the extreme. There were no flames burning the sky, but they condensed into an extremely blazing white halo that occupied the flowing fire saber. When the saber slashed past, it directly annihilated and collapsed pieces of space, as if it could destroy everything. You're not dodging? Aren't you afraid of death? Not only Divine Lord Boundless exclaimed, but billions of people on Earth also exclaimed at the same time. I'm the world. There's no dodging or retreating. When facing a strong enemy, I'll just kill. Why should I be afraid of death? Zhao Xueqing was like a peerless goddess of war. She pressed forward fearlessly, and her sword will was fierce and violent, not weaker than any man. You're courting death. Divine Lord Boundless directly activated the infinite sword. Instantly, many Dharma laws that had been condensed by the sword surged into the sky and raged. Every Dharma law was extremely heavy with an aura that could destroy everything. It could completely crush asteroids and sink continents. Kill! Zhao Xueqing moved along with the saber. Her entire being, together with the Phoenix Goddess, merged with the flowing fire saber into one. In the end, she transformed into a long rainbow-like saber ray that came crashing down. Clang! A terrifying sound shook the sky. The bright sword aura and the infinite sword collided heavily. Terrifying space fluctuations rose and the curvature was disrupted. Strange space holes formed and then collapsed, erupting into terrifying space storms. With the two of them as the center, an area with a radius of 1,000 miles turned into a void. Even space didn't exist anymore. According to the calculations of the supercomputers of the military on Earth, the collision between the two of them was 10 times more powerful than the explosion of the nuclear array of the battleships of the Myth Alliance. Each of those space collapses and storms could tear a normal soul formation cultivator to pieces, let alone a nascent soul cultivator. In total, they could even completely swallow a satellite the size of the moon. 10 collisions of such intensity could have brazenly pierced through the Earth before the recovery of spirit chi, or used the resulting space collapse to swallow the Earth, destroying planets with one strike. This is the ability of a soul formation cultivator. When the data was announced, the entire Earth, including mortals, cultivators and military experts, were dumbfounded and couldn't be more shocked. At this time, countless people realized, once a soul formation cultivator entered the soul formation level, he would become a god in the human world. The soul formation level wasn't just a title like the immortal state warriors on Earth. It wasn't like the cultivators of the light sacred clan in the heavenly state. They were only at the foundation establishment level or the golden core level at most, but they also called themselves saints and sacred kings and sent people to Earth to call themselves gods to attract the power of faith. Gods could control the world. They could also destroy the world and planets with one strike. They weren't gods or gods. What were gods? Where were they? When the space holes and storms erupted, many Dharma artifacts on the battlefield had already stopped working. They couldn't pass through the space holes and were directly swallowed. So, the images that people on Earth saw were interrupted for a few minutes. Where is he? Where's the image? Who? For a moment, they were full of worry. When the space stabilized and the storms disappeared, the images were restored. Everyone was stunned. Zhao Xueqing stood where she was. Her purple crystal armor had been torn apart, revealing her tender skin that was dyed in blood. There were terrifying cracks all over her body that were so deep that her bones could be seen. Divine blood dripped down, and all kinds of laws coiled around her endlessly. They were like pythons that crazily bit and invaded her body. Mistress. Masteress. Goddess Xueqing. At this moment, countless people exclaimed. It was too heart-wrenching. It's okay. He's dead for sure. Zhao Xueqing's plump chest violently heaved a few times. Her red lips slightly opened as she spat out a mouthful of turbid air. Her clear and beautiful eyes were sparkling. She raised the blood-stained saber and pointed the tip of the saber at Sir God Boundless. Bitch, crazy woman, if you hadn't tried so hard, I wouldn't have hurt myself. Divine Lord Boundless raised his hand and pointed at Zhao Xueqing. His fingers trembled violently and his face was complicated. There was fear before death, sadness, unwillingness, and deep hatred. Han Che was right. For example, a doctrine artifact like the Infinite Sword, especially one that stole the fortune of the world, would often bring a terrifying backlash. In order to activate this supreme-grade doctrine artifact, Divine Lord Boundless didn't hesitate to burn his divine power. His cultivation instantly fell to the middle stage of the soul formation realm, and his level was reduced to the 6th grade soul formation realm. It was easy for his level to fall. He could still rely on cultivation to return to the peak. But it was different when the level of the soul formation realm was reduced. There were too many factors involved in the level. It was determined from the nascent soul realm or even the golden core realm. If he wanted to return to the 9th grade, he had to start from the beginning. He might not even succeed if he started from the beginning. The price he had to pay and the risks involved were immeasurable. In other words, Divine Lord Boundless would basically be a 6th grade soul formation realm cultivator in the future. But he had no other choice. As long as he could kill Zhao Xueqing with this sword, it would be worth it. If he survived, he would win. However, he had never expected that Zhao Xueqing was still alive. Also, she took advantage of the fact that his level and cultivation had fallen and cut into his divine treasure. At this time, his divine treasure was collapsing and being burned by the divine phoenix fire. He knew that his divine treasure couldn't resist the attack of Zhao Xueqing's Dharma laws. He could only hold on for 10 seconds at most. The next moment, a trace of madness appeared on his face. He roared, "But you are also injured. These infinite Dharma laws will also erode your divine treasure. Now, any soul formation realm cultivator, even the weakest one, will kill you." He looked up to the sky and laughed as if he was venting. "And do you know how many soul formation realm cultivators are in the fleet of the Beihan clan? You are dead." As soon as he said that, the billions of people on Earth turned pale. Chapter 1758. The Taichu Alliance Master was in seclusion and Zhao Xueqing was the only soul formation divine lord on Earth. And yet, there were more than 10 soul formation divine lords of the Beihan sect. Even though divine lord Wuya was powerful, he was only the vanguard. If Zhao Xueqing was severely injured because of him, her combat power would drop and she wouldn't be able to continue the fight. "Do you think that you can hurt me?" Zhao Xueqing sneered. All of a sudden, the phoenix goddess yelled and the shadow of a divine phoenix appeared behind her. All of a sudden, the laws of healing using the benevolent phoenix heart technique appeared. In the blink of an eye, it disintegrated and forced out the numerous laws that were left in his divine treasures and body. After that, his divine treasures and body instantly recovered as though he had never been injured. "What? How is that possible? You can dissolve the infinite laws." Sir God Wuya was shocked. He sucked in a breath of cold air and his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. It was as though he had seen the most terrifying thing in the world. The Wuya divine sect was one of the top 10 divine sects in the Mizang galaxy. Even though it was affiliated with the Beihan sect, it still controlled a few large planets with life. The sect master of such a sect wasn't an ordinary soul formation cultivator. He would be considered a supreme giant even in the Mizang galaxy. He had cultivated for a long time and stood on top of billions of people while looking down at the planets. He had fought countless battles in his life and once bathed the star ocean in blood. He had mastered countless secret arts. As for the sect's ultimate technique, the boundless and immeasurable, mysterious art, it was known for its numerous transformations and was difficult to deal with. For example, when a law attacked an enemy, it was like a rope binding the enemy. It could be untied and broken. However, when dozens of laws attacked at the same time, even if each of them wasn't pure and tough, it would be like tying the enemy up with dozens of ropes and tying countless knots. It would be difficult for the enemy to break free. This was because many laws were mutually reinforcing and counteracting, interdependent, and could change in cycles. For example, when the enemy used the fire law of the 5 elements to destroy the wood law of the infinite law, the water and earth laws of the infinite law could take the opportunity to suppress it and the fire law could become stronger. In the end, it still couldn't be destroyed. Usually, after the enemy was injured, only 1 or 2 of the boundless laws would be destroyed. The remaining laws would have already pierced through the enemy's divine treasures and killed the god. That was why Divine Lord Wuya had been able to dominate the Kaiyang galaxy with this ultimate skill. He was unrivaled and rarely met a worthy opponent, establishing himself as a supreme giant. But never had he imagined that Zhao Xueqing would actually disintegrate his boundless laws like a swift blade cutting through a tangled knot. This was simply unbelievable to him. How can an ant's bite make my battle prowess drop? Zhao Xueqing placed the flowing fire saber in front of her chest. Her lips parted slightly as she blew away the divine blood on the flowing fire saber. The droplets of blood floated in the air like red agates. She sheathed the saber and stood in the void. A trace of disdain appeared on her beautiful face. Could it be that you're a celestial divine transformation realm cultivator? Sir God Wuya suddenly came to a realization and was extremely shocked. It was as if he had thought that Zhao Xueqing was a harmless little bunny, but after exchanging blows, he realized that she was a ferocious beast that could devour the heavens and earth. Not only was a deity-grade soul formation cultivator powerful, but he also had a shocking 90% chance of becoming a saint. He could even become a legendary Dao reunion perfected immortal who could look down on the world and travel through the universe as if he were walking on flat ground. Even in the Beidou planet region, there might not be one in 100,000 years. Who would have thought that there would be one in the solar system, which was like a remote village with no cultivation systems? How could he not be shocked? However, he couldn't get an answer from Zhao Xueqing anymore. He couldn't withstand the burning of the divine phoenix fire. Cracks appeared on his body as he screamed. Then, endless flames came out of his body and burned him into ashes, completely disappearing from the world. What? Divine Lord Wuya is dead. He's a super-grade soul formation cultivator. I don't know if he's a sacred level cultivator or even higher. This is terrifying. The rest of the cultivators on Advent were so shocked that their souls almost jumped out of their bodies. Like stray dogs, they pushed their crystal shuttles and small warships to the maximum and fled in the direction of the bastion. Most of them were nascent soul cultivators or half-soul formation cultivators, who were much weaker than Divine Lord Wuya. However, even Divine Lord Wuya was killed by Zhao Xueqing with one slash. What could the other cultivators do? They were simply sending themselves to death. Saving their own lives was more important. That was different from the cultivators of the Beidou planet and the ruins of immortality. The cultivation systems of the ruins of immortality were indeed not as good as the Beihan sects, but they were facing a world-ending disaster. In order to survive, the cultivators of the ruins of immortality were extremely fierce. But the Beihan sect was different. They were only invading the earth. If they couldn't kill the enemy, they would immediately flee. There was no reason for them to die. The extraterritorial battlefield became empty for a moment. Only some warship wreckage and pitch-black meteorites floated in the air. There was no longer a single enemy in the world. Only Zhao Xueqing was left standing proudly. At this time, her body was curvy under the purple crystal armor. Her beautiful legs were slender and healthy. Her long hair was fluttering under the headband made of dragon skin. The soul-stabilizing stone inlaid on it was shining brightly, making her delicate face ripple with a gentle glow. Her watery eyes were full of determination and unyielding. She was giving out a powerful and holy vibe. In the eyes of everyone on Earth, she was like a goddess who saved the world. That was right. A goddess who saved the world. At this time, hundreds of millions of people on Earth had the same feeling. She was powerful, as if she had been born and raised by heaven and earth. She was fearless. She had the courage to face the invincible enemies in the extraterrestrial world with her saber. She was full of mercy and kindness. She had experienced many vicissitudes of life, but her heart hadn't changed. Mistress 1. Goddess Xueqing 1. Wu Ye is dead. The enemy ran away. Zhao Xueqing is invincible. For a moment, the whole Earth was cheering. Billions of people on Earth were crying. Many people were jumping and jumping. Excellent, excellent. Mistress, you fought so beautifully. We can hold our heads high. The daughter-in-law of the Jiang family is also good at fighting. She's not inferior to men. In Tianqing school, Lotus Tathagata was chanting Buddha's name. Situ Shao and the other disciples were overjoyed. Jiang Changing was comforted. He clapped his hands and laughed. The big black dog was jumping up and down with Jiang Beibei in his arms. Zhang Wanqing and the other women couldn't control their emotions and shed tears of excitement. Since Han Ming Zongzi made a bold statement and completely turned hostile, everyone had been too depressed. Humiliation, uneasiness, fear, anger and other negative emotions shrouded their hearts like a dark cloud. It was like a big stone was pressing down on them. But now, Zhao Xueqing had attacked head-on, killed Sir God Wuya, and forced the descender to retreat. Everyone felt a long-awaited feeling of exaltation, and the gloomy clouds that had been pressing down on their hearts were swept away. She's a deity-level soul formation cultivator. She killed Divine Lord Wuya with 2 slashes. That's an instant kill. Oh my god. It's not enough that Earth has one monster, Kong Teichu. His wife is also a monster. Earth is really blessed. This is the strength of the Taichu Senior. Not only is he strong, but he also has a supreme art. He can take the people around him to the ultimate level and ascend to the sky. As long as we're loyal, even a little bit of his guidance will be a great blessing. Even Han Che, Fairy Chen Shi, and the others who had surrendered were full of praise. They could tell that Zhao Xueqing was definitely not to be underestimated, but they didn't expect Zhao Xueqing to win so beautifully. When they thought of the great benefits they could obtain by following Jiang Tian, all of them felt their blood boil and they were extremely excited. After the fight, Zhao Xueqing was very calm. She summoned the rising sun, entered the cabin, and changed into a brand new armor. Then, she sat cross-legged on the top of the ship with the flowing fire sword across her knees. She looked calm and sipped the green fire wine in a red wine gourd as if there was no one else around. She swallowed healing elixirs to replenish her energy and keep herself in the best state. The rising sun continued to move in the direction of the Beihan sect as fast as lightning. The wind of the universe blew her hair, which fluttered in the air like a black waterfall. She left a lonely figure to billions of people on Earth. Although there were thousands of people, she still went forward. She still dared to draw her sword. In the desolate universe, in the extraterrestrial battlefield, Zhao Xueqing was alone with a saber. She was facing the endless army that was brimming with murderous intent. However, she was still as calm as ever. She drank and pecked at ease. His confidence caused everyone to be endlessly shocked, and they all felt deep admiration for him. Chapter 1759. A day later, finally, Zhao Xueqing and the second fleet of the Beihan sect encountered each other. An earth-shattering battle broke out again. This time, the Beihan sect sent 4 soul formation cultivators and each of them was as powerful as Divine Lord Wuya. The battle in space lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. The space battleships turned into steel and fireworks in the sky. Many nascent soul formation cultivators died and their bodies were scattered in space. Zhao Xueqing was covered in blood and she even sent Tian Mu and the other soul formation cultivators. But the battle was in a stalemate. The 2 sides were evenly matched and they were still locked in a stalemate after 3 days. But everyone knew that this wasn't all the Beihan sect had. If more troops of the Beihan sect joined the battle, Zhao Xueqing would most likely die. Nervousness, uneasiness, fear, anxiety, anger and other emotions tugged at the nerves of hundreds of millions of people on Earth. Many people felt that the string in their heads was about to break. Is Kong Teichu still in seclusion? Zhao Xueqing might die if the battle goes on. Why isn't he out yet? 1 streak, 2 streaks, 3 streaks, 100, 1,000, 10,000, billions of people on Earth were looking at Sidoni, the Tianqing school and Jiang Tian with anticipation and anxiety. At this moment, no matter if they were male or female, young or old, rich or poor, black or white, everyone looked at Jiang Tian hopefully. They were looking at the overlord who had saved Earth time and time again. Meanwhile, Jiang Tian had reached the most critical moment of breaking through to the 5th level of the nascent soul level. I've refined the blood of 100 soul formation cultivators. Soul formation cultivators were much more powerful than nascent soul cultivators. Soul formation cultivators were known as gods in the human world. They had already been blessed by the world and had become one with the world, as if they were gods nurtured by nature. It was no longer a mortal body, but a body of Dharma laws. A drop of soul formation blood contained endless essence chi, the essence of the world, and turned into Dharma laws. It could easily kill a nascent soul cultivator and crush a golden core cultivator with a strand of hair. It would be a great fortune for normal nascent soul cultivators to get even a drop of soul formation blood. If he could refine a bowl of semi-god realm blood essence, he would be able to push his cultivation level up by 1 or 2 levels. In the meantime, Jiang Tian, who was deep inside the Tianqing school, consumed the blood of 100 soul formation cultivators when he broke through from the 4th level of the nascent soul stage to the 5th. It was like a baby eating a cow, which brought endless nourishment and improvement to his cultivation and strength. In the beginning, the refinement was a bit difficult. It usually took him 2 hours to refine the blood of a soul formation cultivator. But later, it was as easy as swallowing a whale. He opened his mouth and directly refined the blood. The 9-orifice chaotic divine infant is indeed the most powerful nascent soul in the universe. The chaotic divine body is also the most powerful divine body. The consumption of each breakthrough is too terrifying. I thought I could reach the peak stage of the nascent soul level with so much soul formation blood in the ruins of deities, but it seems impossible. Jiang Tian looked calm and his eyes were flickering. He heaved a sigh of satisfaction. Is it possible that it's useless to devour normal soul formation cultivators for the next breakthrough? Do I have to be a 9th grade or even a sacred grade soul formation cultivator? At this moment, Jiang Tian's god body was crystal clear. Each of his cells was like a treasure trove, each drop of his blood was like a star, and each of his organs was like a star region that emitted a dazzling light. The shackles on his body were constantly broken and broken. He became more compatible with the principles of heaven and earth as if he had become one with the great Tao. The Dharma laws he had mastered had already surpassed the 9 divine laws on the divine disc. He was moving towards a broader, deeper, and more mysterious Dharma laws, opening up many cultivation forbidden areas and even areas he hadn't mastered in his previous life. For example, the enormous power of his body that could move mountains and fill oceans, the supreme divine power that could pick the stars and capture the moon and break the dimension. The spirit sense of the 9-orifice chaotic divine infant, its instinct to avoid danger, and even the divine soul of the fiend god of prison were improving rapidly, opening the doors of Dharma laws one after another, peeking at their mysteries and touching and merging all kinds of Dharma laws. Jiang Tian was already very satisfied with his current state. The chaotic divine infant had already reached the phenomenal success level. Its 9 orifices seemed to be connected to the world, allowing it to devour and activate endless Dharma laws at any time. His divine body was only a piece of paper away from the phenomenal success level. Well, I'll break through the last barrier and reach the 5th level of the nascent soul level. Then I'll come out. Jiang Tian shook his head gently and stopped thinking too much. A hint of determination appeared on his face as he said softly, refine. The divine disc in his body spun like a millstone and the chaotic creation art was running crazily. The 9 orifices of the chaotic nascent soul were all opened. The vertical eye at the center of its forehead and both its eyes were glittering, speeding up the refinement of the soul formation level blood. It was moving towards a supreme level, breaking the invisible shackles, connecting the world and controlling Dharma laws and Dharma laws. At that moment, he seemed to have traveled through the universe, condensed the universe and connected the past, the present and the future. He had a deeper understanding of life, death and thousands of Dharma laws and Dharma laws. Traces of Dharma laws and patterns appeared on the surface of his body, especially those on the 9-orifice nascent soul and the divine disc. They became even more complicated, as if they were creating a new world and nurturing chaos, as if a brand new universe was about to be born. My chaotic divine body has finally reached the phenomenal success level. At that moment, he felt that his power was endless, as if he could blow up the sun with one punch and penetrate the earth with one finger. Of course, that was just an illusion due to the extreme strengthening of his body. He felt that he could face a sacred soul formation cultivator and let him kill him as he pleased. The latter wouldn't be able to do anything to him. The 9-orifice chaotic divine infant has also leveled up to the 5th level. Jiang Tian looked at the nascent soul and nodded with satisfaction. The 5th level of the nascent soul level was also a small milestone. The nascent soul before was like a naked baby that had just been born. The nascent soul then looked more like a 3- or 4-year-old child. It had grown hair and was wearing naturally formed clothes with many accessories. It was lively, cute, and smart. Those clothes and accessories weren't to be underestimated. They weren't made for looks. They were the result of the condensation of Dharma laws. Each of them represented a connection with a Dharma law. If they were used, they would have a terrifying attack that could destroy the world. At that moment, the chaotic divine infant carried an aura that looked down on the world, as if it could break the sky and suppress thousands of worlds. The chaotic divine infant was like the child of a god. That was its true appearance. The divine soul of the demon god of prison has also reached the phenomenal success level. Jiang Tian was a bit surprised by that, because many divine souls of the soul formation cultivators in the ruins of immortality had been destroyed and couldn't be absorbed and used. When he cultivated, he used the divine souls of the 3 soul formation cultivators of the superbrain human race. He didn't expect their divine souls to be so vast and pure that they could push the divine soul of the demon god of prison to the phenomenal success level. The Beihan sect has already taken action. They're bullying my wife alone. Jiang Tian's immortal will was too strong. Even if he didn't deliberately activate it, he could sense everything that was happening outside. Do they really think that I, Kong Teichu, am a pushover? A glint of coldness flashed in Jiang Tian's eyes. Murderous intent shot up to the sky. Jiang Tian had just broken through 2 levels. His divine body, divine infant, divine law, and immortal will had all been upgraded to the maximum. He had no place to use his vast Dharma power. Of course, he had to go on a killing spree and let the Beihan sect know the consequences of messing with Kong Teichu. Chapter 1760. Keep an eye on the sect and watch out for the cultivators from other planets. I'm going to meet the army of the Beihan sect. Boom. Jiang Tian soared into the sky, using the extreme speed of the Kunpeng. He was like a dragon that split heaven and earth, charging towards the battlefield outside the realm. Senior Taichu has come out. Yes, I think he's made another breakthrough. He's reached the 5th level of the nascent soul level. At this moment, the entire Tianqing school was in an uproar. The 5th level of the nascent soul level. He's not an ordinary nascent soul cultivator. His breakthrough is too fast. It's just in time. The faces of Jiang Changing, Lotus Relay, and the others were filled with joy. Jiang Tian had been able to kill soul formation cultivators before. This time, he had broken through twice in a row and reached the ultimate level. His power was unimaginable. Who can defeat the sect master of the Taichu sect? He'll be able to defeat the enemies from other planets and avenge himself. Sasaki Haisha and the other disciples were determined. Their eyes were shining brightly. It's hard to tell who will win. The Beihan sect is well prepared this time. They've almost sent out all their forces. Only Han Shenxi's handsome face showed a hint of worry. Jiang Tian would be facing the entire army of the Beihan sect, the Huangyuan sect, the Snow God Palace, the Boundless sect, and the Arctic sect. Even Divine Prince Han Ming might join the battle. Then, he looked at the image of the battlefield sent by the Dharma artifact again. The coalition army of the divine sects of the Mizang galaxy was scattered in the sky, blocking the sun. There were countless of them. One of the space cities was enough to block the light of the sun, as if there was a solar eclipse. It was like a star in space, and there were 2 of them. There were 10 bastions in total, and they looked like 10 moons that stretched across the sky. Around them, there are countless space battleships, each of which is not weaker than the rising sun. Every warrior in golden armor was apparently a golden core cultivator. Their energy stirred the sky and shook 100 miles, forming a rectangular formation. As for the nascent soul heavenly lords who were called ancestral patriarchs, There were even more of them. The most terrifying ones were the dozen or so divine emperors of the semi-god realm standing above the army. The laws coiled around their bodies while grand Tao fragments floated up and down. They were either dazzling like a sun that soared through the sky, a river that coiled around them, a vast small world that rose up behind them, mountains that coiled around them, or a moon-like moon that hung high in the 9 heavens. Almost every soul formation Grand Cultivator was a 9th grade soul formation Grand Cultivator and was at the peak. They could control Dharma laws and touch the Grand Tao. They were unbelievably powerful. Even with Zhao Xueqing's resistance, they were still 300,000 kilometers away from Earth. The distance was very far, but both cultivators and mortals on Earth could feel the aura that shook the world above the 9 heavens. This time, the cultivators of the freezing North sect and the 4 major immortal sects had arrived. Just looking at the divine beasts or mounts that pulled the carriages of the Sir-Gods, they were no trifling matter. Each of them had the strength of an ordinary divine transformation realm warrior. People like Jeffrey and Ji Muxian were not even enough to fill the gaps between their teeth. They were baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. Some breathed out smoke, some were surrounded by lightning, and some raised gales that could kill a nascent soul stage cultivator with a sneeze. Their bloodlines were too terrifying. It's the bloodline of a divine beast. The 8-winged flying centipede, the red flame iron tiger and the black jade Kylan are all very rare descendants of divine beasts. They're usually kept in the depths of the immortal sects, and not even the deputy sect masters are allowed to take them with them. I can't believe they're pulling carriages to Earth today. Looks like Han Ming Zongzi and the other sect masters are really angry. She shook her head. She had never seen such a terrifying scene either. Divine beasts were different from monsters. They were existences that dominated the universe. Any creature that was related to divine beasts would immediately become 100 times more valuable, like a sparrow flying to a branch and becoming a phoenix. It wasn't just because the bloodline of the divine beasts or their descendants were much more powerful than monsters of the same level. Every descendant of a divine beast would be born with a certain divine power of the divine beast. The divine powers of the divine beasts were far more powerful than normal Dharma spells. For example, the great chaos art of the Kuan Peng and the Xianming Water Thunder of the Xian Wu were all earth-shattering divine powers. So to speak, the divine beasts pulling the carriages might not be inferior to the divine lords in terms of fighting power. Just by looking at their arrival and their lazy eyes, many creatures and beasts on Earth who already had the cultivation of the Golden Core realm were trembling and crawling on the ground, not daring to move at all. This showed how terrifying the bloodline of the divine beasts was. Oh no! They're attacking! It's a few 100,000 miles and the Dharma laws are so strong. I'm worried that Fairy Xueqing will die before Senior Tai Chu arrives. Suddenly, Hanch Divine Prince's eyes widened and he exclaimed. Everyone looked at the screen and saw. The coalition army of the Beihan sect and the 4 immortal sects had already surrounded Zhao Xueqing's the rising sun. Zhao Xueqing was covered in blood and severely injured. Only half of the flowing fire blade was left. More than half of the 100 Soul Formation Corps generals, including Tian Mu, had died. Only 20 Soul Formation Corps generals could still fight. That wasn't strange because Tian Mu and the others were just normal soul formation cultivators before they were captured and refined into corpses. They didn't have a grade or a very low grade, so they were no match for the high-level soul formation cultivators in the Mizang galaxy. After being controlled by the soul-swallowing immortal will, their intelligence deteriorated and their Dharma power and divine powers were also weakened. At that moment, a soul formation cultivator suddenly looked at Earth and whispered, "Oh no, this is bad. An overlord on Earth has come out. It should be Kong Teichu. We must capture Zhao Xueqing in time. Let's make him hesitate and lose without a fight." Divine Lord Bing Jian is right. Speed is the most important thing in war. Let's do it. Many divine lords nodded. Violent viciousness rose to the sky, shaking the sky and the stars seemed to be falling. Let's convince her one last time. This woman's body is extraordinary. If we can persuade her to surrender and let Han Ming Zongzi use her, it'll be a good thing. The Divine Lord who spoke was wearing an ice armor and standing on a chariot pulled by a black jade Kylin. Ice Dharma laws surrounded him and cold energy spread out, freezing the world. He was as powerful as Divine Lord Wuya. He might even be more powerful. His face was covered by a helmet that seemed to be made of ice crystals. Only his eyes could be seen that were as cold as ice. His eyes were extremely cold as he spoke emotionlessly. Zhao Xueqing, are you still going to resist? Do you think you can stop them? Once the heavenly soldiers arrive, the entire Tianqing school will be crushed and there won't be a single living being left. I advise you to surrender now and I won't kill your husband. I'll let him have a place under Han Ming Zongzi's command. That soul formation Divine Lord was the sect master of the Snow God Palace, Bingjian. The Snow God Palace on Earth was the sect he supported. He had once destroyed many sects of the Myth Alliance and killed many members. He had committed countless crimes. Before he could finish, Zhao Xueqing had already let out an angry roar and soared into the sky. Her petite body burst forth with endless divine brilliance. Under the terrifying phoenix dance of the ninth heaven footwork, the five-colored godly phoenix phantom and Zhao Xueqing suddenly pulled into a colorful rainbow. She broke through the void and stabbed her saber at the ice mirror divine sovereign. There was a loud rumble. The flowing fire blade went forward and turned into a rain of fire in a 10-mile radius. It flashed across the sky and pierced through the air, surrounded by Dharma laws, and smashed towards Divine Lord Bingjian. Zhao Xueqing slashed out with anger, bringing with her the grief and indignation of the tragic deaths of many of her companions and acquaintances. Her strength was extremely powerful. In the end, it almost turned into a fire that covered the world. That slash could even turn peak stage soul formation cultivators into ashes. Unfortunately, Divine Lord Bingjian wasn't a normal soul formation cultivator. He was the most powerful Divine Lord standing at the top of the soul formation cultivators in the Star Ocean. 9th grade. Besides, Zhao Xueqing had been fighting for 3 days and 3 nights in the attrition battle. She had slashed apart almost 100 crystal warships, heavily damaged a space fortress, and killed 3 divinity transformation stage cultivators and countless nascent soul stage cultivators. And yet, he hadn't done anything since the beginning. His power and Dharma laws had been in perfect condition. Clang! Divine Lord Bingjian punched and knocked Zhao Xueqing away. She flew across hundreds of miles of space and smashed into the rising sun. With a bang, a huge hole appeared on the rising sun, which could withstand the explosion of nuclear weapons. Zhao Xueqing's whole body crackled and cracked. She didn't know how many ribs were broken, and blood spurted out from the corner of her mouth. You're just an ant. You don't know your own strength. Divine Lord Bingjie shook his head slightly as the corners of his mouth curled into a mocking smile. He punched and knocked Zhao Xueqing away, as if he were brushing the dust off his clothes. It wasn't worth mentioning. Divine Lord Bingjian turned around and looked at the approaching golden aura. He was a bit shocked and then sneered. The Dharma laws on Earth are too strong after the spirit chi recovery. Although you're fast, it'll take you at least half a day to reach the extraterrestrial battlefield with your body. During that time, we'll be able to capture your wife alive. Let's fight. After a clang, Zhao Xueqing flew out of the rising sun again. She was drenched in blood and she waved her saber to fight again. At that moment, many cultivators on Earth, including Han Che, Chen Shi, Jiang Changing, Lotus Rulai and Sidu Shao, looked extremely pale. They were both shocked and furious. If they weren't a match for Divine Lord Bingjian, they would have already fought with their lives. Mistress! Sasaki Haisha and Shen Mange both shed tears. Zhang Wanqing held back her tears and covered Jiang Beibei's eyes to stop her from watching. Jiang Beibei pushed her grandmother's hand away and looked at the screen with red eyes. She said in a childish voice, "Why did they bully Mom? Why did so many people bully Mom? We didn't bully them. What's the point of reasoning with invaders? If they wanted to reason with us, they wouldn't be invaders." Zhang Wanqing tried to cover her granddaughter's hand again. "Grandma, I want to watch. Even if Mom is going to be killed by them, I want to watch. I want to remember their faces and their names. One day, I'll go to their hometown and avenge Mom. Jiang Beibei insisted with tears in her eyes. They've gone too far. I can't stand it. The large black dog was so angry that he stood up on his hind legs. He pulled at his own hair and paced back and forth like a mad lion. Suddenly he roared and turned into a purple-gold true dragon. He rushed out into the skies, wanting to fight alongside Jiang Tian. In the battlefield outside the realm, the battle had already reached its climax. Bing Jian used the laws of gods and was locked in a fierce battle with Zhao Xueqing. Zhao Xueqing, surrender and admit your guilt. You're no match for Divine Lord Bing Jian. If you surrender and kneel down to repent, you'll still have a chance to live. Otherwise, the entire Tianqing school, earth, and the ruins of deity will be burned to ashes by Han Ming Zongzi's anger. Among the divine lords, the high-spirited Gu Meng divine lord spoke. Chapter 1761. The ancient Mang divine lord's sleeves fluttered in the wind. He had white hair and a white beard. He looked like an immortal, as if he were doing Zhao Xueqing a favor. In the end, he was almost heartbroken. It was as if Zhao Xueqing would be the sinner of the entire Tianqing school, the entire Earth and the entire abandoned planet region if she didn't give up. He was the sect master of the Huangyuan sect and had lived a long life. He had fought in the Star Ocean all his life and was good at psychological attacks. Right? Kong Teichu and Zhao Xueqing shouldn't resist the cultivators from other planets for their own interests. Han Ming Zongzi doesn't want to destroy the civilization on Earth. Instead, he's trying to improve the cultivation arts on Earth. Kong Teichu and his wife are fighting so bravely for their own interests, aren't they? They're afraid that they'll lose control of the Myth Alliance. I think Han Ming Zongzi might not punish them if they surrender now. He might even let them be the Alliance Master of the Myth Alliance. After hearing that, many fans of the cultivators from other planets on Earth started to clamor again. Many cultivator orthodoxies, and even many cultivators in the Heavenly Clear sect's main hall, were shaken by the idea of betrayal. They couldn't be blamed for having such thoughts. If the large sects sent a battleship with dozens of half-dead soul formation cultivators like the Heavenly Mu Divine General of the Dynasty of the Ruins of Immortality, then the local cultivators on Earth would only stand behind Jiang Tian and fight against the Beidou Divine sect to the end. There were 2 new godly monarchs on Earth, so why would they be afraid of some half-dead godly monarchs? However, now, the 5 divine sects had joined forces to attack. Battleships were everywhere, gold core cultivators were everywhere, and nascent soul cultivators were everywhere. Many divine sovereigns were even riding divine beast bloodline war chariots. There were also star-level space cities and space fortresses. They were really scared. Even Hanch Divine Prince felt a bit scared, not to mention them. The ruins of immortality, which had been declining for 100,000 years, was already so terrifying. Kong Teichu had fought for 5 years before finally achieving victory. He was surrounded by perils, as if he had narrowly escaped death. Not to mention the undying sects that had ruled over the foreign lands for millions of years, with countless generations of inheritances. They were truly the most powerful sects that stood in the sea of stars like divine mountains. Destroying the ruins of immortality was just a matter of a word from them. My knees are not that cheap. My bones weren't that soft either. Because I'm Kong Teichu's woman. I would rather die than surrender. I would rather die 100 deaths than take a step back. If you want to massacre Tianqing School or Earth, you'll have to do it over my dead body. Zhao Xueqing was pushed back time and time again by Divine Sovereign Ice Mirror, but she managed to draw her saber and rise again. The bones all over her body healed and broke again and again. Gradually, the terrifying laws of extreme cold invaded her internal organs and divine treasures, freezing her to the core. Her entire body was shivering, and laws of ice crystals formed all over her body. It was as if she was covered in ice and snow. Stubborn. Rotten wood can't be carved. The ancient Mang Divine Sovereign was so angry that he was shaking all over. He waved his hand and said, "Fellow cultivators, don't be polite with this crazy woman. Let's capture her together." If she puts up a desperate struggle and we can't capture her, then let's send her to the afterlife. Agreed. As soon as he said that, many divine sovereigns closed in on Zhao Xueqing from all directions. Monstrous killing intent swept across the sky, and more than a dozen kinds of laws turned into avatars that descended with the intention of capturing Zhao Xueqing alive to threaten Jiang Tian. Hubby, I'm sorry. I couldn't hold on, I'm too tired. I tried my best, but I really couldn't hold on anymore. I hope you won't blame me. At that moment, Zhao Xueqing stood quietly in the void, holding the broken saber that was stained with blood and showing a sorrowful smile. Suddenly, she gritted her teeth and stopped blocking the attacks of the laws. Like a phoenix dancing in the sky, she charged towards the ancient Mang divine sovereign and the others. She's going to self-destruct. Retreat. The ancient Mang divine sovereign's expression changed drastically. He was right. Zhao Xueqing was going to self-destruct. Firstly, she didn't want to be captured and become a burden to Jiang Tian. She wanted Jiang Tian to be wary of her and put him in a difficult position. She knew how proud Jiang Tian was. On Earth, he had defeated many cultivation orthodoxies, but he had never admitted defeat. In the solar system's dimensional worlds, he had never been weaker than anyone. In the face of the terrifying ruins of immortality, he dared to draw his sword and fight for 5 years to become the master of the ruins of immortality. Why would he lower his head and admit defeat today? Also, Zhao Xueqing was extremely valiant. Since she couldn't win and was going to die in battle, she would kill as many as she could. Self-destructing is equivalent to suicide. No, Goddess Xueqing. But Earth has just recovered its spirit chi and you want to kill it so cruelly? Why? We didn't have any hostility, but you schemed to kill Earth's geniuses and elites. But you bullied the weak again and again. At this moment, countless people on Earth were shocked and moved. They shouted angrily at the Beihan sect and burst into tears. Qing, you can't die. Bei can't live without you. Jiang Tian can't live without you. The Jiang family can't live without you. Zhang Wanqing was already sobbing. She screamed at the communication jade tablet. Mistress, she's a merciful bodhisattva. Lotus Rulai put his palms together and exclaimed. Jiang Changging's face changed drastically. He wanted to say something and his hands trembled, but in the end he couldn't say anything. All he wanted to say was a long sigh and he seemed to have aged 100 years. Jiang Bei gritted her teeth and tried to stop her tears from falling, but she couldn't. She could only wipe her eyes again and again because she wanted to remember the face of her mother's murderer. Honey, I'm sorry. I can't stand by your side anymore. Daughter, I'm sorry. I can't stay with you anymore. You must grow up healthily. Zhao Xueqing ignored the many nomological attacks descending from the sky. She closed her eyes slightly and stood there. Her body seemed to emit a holy light, like a fairy descending into the world. She was about to self-destruct. At this moment, countless people on Earth clenched their fists and tears welled up in their eyes. Countless cultivators from other planets laughed proudly. Many divine lords put up their defenses and waited for Zhao Xueqing to die. They didn't have good intentions, but they didn't expect Zhao Xueqing to be so stubborn. She would rather die than surrender. Zhao Xueqing's blood was special. If Han Ming Zongzi could take it, he might be able to reach the void return level and become a saint. Do you want to die? Aren't you afraid of Kong Teichu's woman? Aren't you afraid of Kong Teichu's anger? Suddenly, a voice filled with anger resounded through the world. Many of the law attacks that were rushing towards Zhao Xueqing exploded and were completely routed. Many powerful Sir Gods were thrown off their feet by the raging power. They retreated dozens of miles and their faces were filled with fear. Many golden core cultivators exploded on the spot. Even the nascent soul heavenly lords were protected by Dharma laws and didn't die on the spot. Many of them spurted out blood. The crystal warships and even the space fortresses that looked like stars staggered backward like small boats in the middle of a surging tide. Only the 2 space fortresses were as steady as Mount Tai. You're out? Zhao Xueqing abruptly opened her eyes and saw Jiang Tian standing beside her. Her voice involuntarily trembled in disbelief. Jiang Tian's plan was to cultivate in seclusion for 7 days, which was already very tight. It was difficult to refine the blood of a soul formation cultivator. He didn't expect to come out on the 5th day. "Well, you've suffered." Jiang Tian touched Zhao Xueqing's face gently and performed the art of creation to help her break down the alien Dharma laws and expel them from her body to heal her wounds. The more Jiang Tian healed, the angrier he became. A terrifying viciousness rose to the sky. Chapter 1762. It wasn't that he couldn't disintegrate those laws and heal her wounds. It was just that Zhao Xueqing was too severely injured and the enemy's attacks were too vicious. If he had come a day later, Zhao Xueqing would have been half dead, not to mention that she would have been exhausted and injured in the battle and would have been attacked by the laws again. Ever since he was reborn, Jiang Tian had never been as furious as he was today. "Honey, I didn't fight well. I've disappointed you." Seeing Jiang Tian's arrival, Zhao Xueqing didn't know why, but she felt exhausted and drowsy. In fact, a normal person's stamina and willpower would have completely collapsed after such a terrifying battle. It was Zhao Xueqing who had been holding on with her steel-like willpower. It was only because Jiang Tian was here that she felt that Earth was safe. That was why she felt so tired and weak. "You've already fought very well." Jiang Tian kissed her on the forehead, smiled gently, and praised her with sincerity. "You alone, with a sword and a spaceship, with only 100 corpse generals and a few hundred corpse soldiers, you defeated more than a dozen soul formation divine lords, more than 1,000 nascent soul heavenly lords and 100,000 soldiers outside Earth's gate without a single casualty. How is that not good?" "Really? I thought I didn't fight well." Zhao Xueqing smiled sweetly. At that moment, she was like a young girl who had received great praise from her lover. She was overjoyed and felt that all the hardships and dangers in the past few days were worth it. "This guy is so powerful. I'm afraid he's as strong as us." The ancient Mang Divine Lord's expression changed and he became alert, as if he was facing a formidable enemy. Just now, more than a dozen soul formation divine lords had attacked together. How terrifying was that? It was enough to destroy a planet with life. However, Jiang Tian had actually shattered all the laws with a shout. That was simply too terrifying. "Let's go while he's healing his wife. Now's the time." Divine Lord Bingjian's eyes were as sharp as a sword and his killing intent was overflowing. This guy is only at the 5th level of the nascent soul stage, but he is as powerful as a divinity transformation stage cultivator. His bloodline is very special, and his cultivation art is even weirder. If we can capture him, drink his blood, and interrogate him about his cultivation art, we will definitely gain great benefits. The sect master of the North Pole sect, Sir God Sieyu, had MOU floating behind him. A sinister aura filled the air. His face was ferocious and his eyes were filled with greed. When a lion fights a rabbit, it still has to use all its strength. Shiyue, if you consider taking his flesh and blood and don't kill him with all your strength, you may be killed by him. In this old man's opinion, don't think too much. Just kill him. One of the grand elders of the Boundless sect, Divine Lord Bai Yi, said coldly. Sir God Wuya was the illegitimate son he had with the previous sect master's wife. That was his own son, but he had died at the hands of Zhao Xueqing. Of course, he wanted to take revenge. Yes, Divine Lord Bai Yi's words make sense. Kill him while his wife is sick. Many Sir Gods nodded. They quickly reached a consensus. That was because no one could guess Jiang Tian's strength, but he was definitely very strong. Since they couldn't figure out his strength, they had to hold nothing back. And just as the Sir Gods were about to attack, Jiang Tian suddenly retracted his palm and stood with his hands behind his back. He said indifferently, "Fellow Taoists, are you ready to be killed by me?" Well, he has already cured Zhao Xueqing. At that moment, many Sir Gods felt like they were in a difficult position. They couldn't believe it. Their conversation was carried out with their divine consciousness. The moment they thought of it, the other party would immediately sense it. Their conversation just now only lasted for a few seconds, but Jiang Tian had actually disintegrated all the laws in Zhao Xueqing's body in such a short time. That was simply too terrifying. Hubby, I'll fight alongside you. We have always fought side by side. Zhao Xueqing felt that she had already recovered. Although she hadn't reached her peak, she was close. But it's different this time. Jiang Tian shook his head and said, "You fought in the first half and killed a few Sir Gods. I'll be responsible for the second half. You can kill a few more Sir Gods, but I might not have killed as many as you." "Hubby, are you going to compete again?" Zhao Xueqing suddenly cracked a smile. She thought back to many years ago when she had just activated the potential of the immortal phoenix body through the D-New flower. At that time, the Great Circle had released the hidden flower and hundreds of assassins from all over the world had gathered in China to hunt down Jiang Tian. She and Jiang Tian had started a killing competition in Gold City. Back then, she was still a little girl who would vomit and tremble after killing someone. In the blink of an eye, he had grown into an expert who could fight against an army of 10,000 by himself. Earth had also undergone great changes, and too many things had happened. "You're a soul formation cultivator and I'm just a nascent soul cultivator, but I'm also a competitive and ambitious young man." Jiang Tian smiled and said, "So, I want to compete with you. You're still a young man. You're almost 40. Zhao Xueqing teased him, but she still went into the rising sun obediently. "How dare you? How arrogant! You don't know what's good for you." Seeing this scene, Bing Jian, Xie Yu, Gu Mang, Pai Yi and the other divine lords all became furious and shouted. Even a clay Buddha would be angry, not to mention that they were all respected and arrogant peerless Sir Gods. They were furious when Jiang Tian and his wife looked down on them. In a blink, a battle broke out. "Kong Teichu, I'll kill you to avenge Sect Master Weia. Go!" Divine Lord Pai was the most resentful and vicious. He took the lead and attacked Jiang Tian. He also had boundless Dharma laws and his level was a bit higher than Divine Lord Weia's. When it was 50 miles away from Jiang Tian, it suddenly roared toward the sky. It was the roar of a god, and in an instant, many laws were activated. Although they weren't pure, they were vast and complicated, smashing down on Jiang Tian like a huge mountain. "You're just like an ant." Jiang Tian shook his head and chuckled. He didn't even look at him, he only raised his hand and slapped. Boom! The space in a 100-mile radius was immediately compressed into a thin piece of paper. The boundless laws that were complicated and entangled like tangles, vast like an ocean, and heavy like a mountain suddenly shattered and transformed into powder under the terrifying pressure. What? He broke the Dharma laws with his body. That's terrifying. He broke the Dharma laws with pure strength, and they were created by a 9th-grade soul formation cultivator. This is too heaven-defying. Everyone was frightened and their heads were numb. They couldn't believe it. The might that Jiang Tian displayed at this time made them dare not believe it. The power of his body, his essence chi, Dharma laws. They all belonged to different levels. The higher the level, the more powerful and terrifying the power of the world outside could be. It was like the lever principle in physics. Ordinary people could move the earth if they were given a fulcrum. The higher their level, the more powerful their ability to use the outside world. Jiang Tian could use the Dharma laws and the power of the world at the moment, but he used the most basic physical strength to resist the enemy's Dharma laws, which belonged to a 9th-grade soul formation cultivator, and defeated him easily. How terrifying was this? How shocking was this? None of the divine lords present had such power, so they were extremely shocked. Brother Pai, retreat. Bing Jian, Shiyue, Gu Mang, and the others all warned loudly. Retreat. Sir God Pai, who was in the middle of it, turned pale with fright. He was so scared that his soul almost left his body. Without saying a word, he urged the deity to break open the space with the power of the Dharma and retreated as fast as a shooting star. But he was still a bit slower. He didn't even have time to let out a cry before he was compressed into a thin piece of paper by Jiang Tian's attack. Flesh, blood, bones, internal organs, and even the toughest divine treasures and gods were instantly turned into pieces of paper that were as thin as a cicada's wings. Countless nascent soul heavenly lords and golden core perfected cultivators in that area had died. Jiang Tian had been looking at the sky since the beginning. He didn't even look at Divine Lord Pai, as if he were just an ant that he could kill casually. "You're bullying my woman, aren't you? All of you have to die." Then, Jiang Tian stomped his feet and the dimension was compressed like a spring, then returned to normal, pushing Jiang Tian into the sky like a ray of golden light. He crashed into the army of 100,000 soldiers of the Beihan sect and attacked the Divine Lords like a torpedo. He went on a rampage, killing countless golden core cultivators, nascent soul cultivators and crystal warships. Everywhere it passed, waves of blood gushed out. Severed limbs, wreckage of ships, and fragments of magical tools and weapons fell down like rain, forming a bloody path that stretched across the heavens and the earth. The originally majestic and unshakable Alliance army formation was like a piece of paper. A huge crack was torn open by this bloody path. At this moment, all the cultivators and mortals on Earth and the Alliance army of the 5 divine sects were stunned. Even the peak stage soul formation cultivators like Bing Jian, Evil Moon, and Gu Meng widened their eyes in disbelief. Jiang Tian's power was so terrifying that he could go through 100,000 soldiers with his body. "I can't believe the sect master of the Taichu sect has become so powerful this time. This is the sect master of the Taichu sect, the divine lord of the Taichu sect." On the other hand, Jiang Tian's many disciples, relatives, and friends on Earth were extremely shocked and shouted excitedly, "No matter how many soldiers you have, I'll destroy them with a punch." Chapter 1763. When Jiang Tian came out of seclusion and flew up to the sky, he was about to start a war with the 5 divine sects. Kong Teichu has come out of seclusion. Can he make it in less than 7 days? In the space city of the Yuntian Palace, Han Ming Zongzi sat still. Endless great path laws roared around him, affecting the entire earth. He was like a peerless god of war. His eyes were indifferent, and victory was in his grasp. Beside him, many extraterrestrial prodigies sat beside him. A huge, heavenly water mirror was set up. It had a radius of dozens of meters and displayed the scene of the extraterrestrial battlefield down to the smallest detail. This was an observation-type quasi-sacred artifact. In the 9 underworld's 3 realms, there was nothing that it could not see. There was no one that it could not see. Before this, every move on Earth had not escaped Han Ming Zongzi's observation. At the moment, the entire battlefield could be seen from every angle. The artifact spirit could even analyze their constitution, power, combat power, and dharma artifacts. Han Cheng, the second Zongzi of the Beihan sect, chuckled and said, "I wonder if Kong Teichu will dare to fight under Brother's peerless power." He was in awe of Han Ming and didn't dare to compete with him. He could only follow him closely. Han Ming had reached the peak stage of the soul formation stage before he was 500 years old, and he was a sacred grade soul formation cultivator. He was extremely talented, and there was almost 100% chance that he would become a void returning saint. He was ranked 26th on the galaxy list of the Big Dipper. Even Tian Xie, the divine lord of the monsters, was only ranked 98th. The list was very important. In a word, no one in the South Gate Galaxy had been able to make it to the galaxy list since the overlord of the Wood Spirit planet. "I think he's quite stubborn. He'll choose to fight." Gui Yufan, the Zongzi of the Banished Deity Palace, said. He had a head of silver hair and was surrounded by galaxies. He had a pair of silver wings on his back, and his energy was intimidating. The Banished Immortal Palace also came from the Big Dipper Galaxy, but it wasn't in the Mizar Galaxy, but the Alcade Galaxy. It was also a powerful million-year-old sect with a deep foundation and a strong orthodoxy. This Zongzi Guiyufan was a half-saint divine transformation realm cultivator. But after entering the divine transformation realm, he had been refining for 300 years. His foundation was 1 level thicker than Han Ming's, and his strength was on par with Han Ming's. The reason he came to Earth was to help Han Ming Zongzi. This was because Han Ming Zongzi had already married his younger sister, Fairy Tsai. In the future, he would be his brother-in-law. Of course, he would support him. As for the Feiyang sect, the Limitless sect, and other orthodoxies in the Alcade Galaxy, It was all because of Gui Yufan. With Brother Gui here, no matter how strong that Kong Tae-chu is, what can he do? Because they were related by marriage, the other party was helping him occupy Earth. Moreover, his strength was not ordinary. Han Ming naturally gave him face and said with a smile. Gui Yufan was ranked 32nd on the 1,000-year galaxy list of the Big Dipper galaxy. He had mastered the raging galaxy, divine power at the soul formation level. It was said that whenever he went to a planet region, he could quickly merge with the Dharma laws of that world. Once he used it, the Juyo 3 realms and billions of miles of galaxies would be affected, which was extremely terrifying. And yet, Han Ming knew that the most terrifying thing about him was the pair of silver wings on his back. That was a pair of natural-born quasi-sacred weapons. The sacred wings, in his body, had been refined with terrifying divine powers. One of the wings could split yin and yang, control wind and thunder, slash the world and move thousands of miles. It was extremely terrifying whether it was fighting or running away. Kong Tae-chu is stubborn and stubborn. How dare he be so arrogant when the army is here? Does he really think we're just playing around like the ones in the ruins of deities? A sacred soul formation Grand Cultivator has made a flawless plan. When we arrive with 100,000 heavenly soldiers, we can crush Earth. Guitsai's beauty was unparalleled. Her 2 slender legs were dazzlingly white, and her beautiful face was full of disdain. Like a lazy kitten, she snuggled up to Han Ming and snorted. No matter what trump cards he has or what tricks he has up his sleeves, they will all be crushed by our supreme power. So what if he's a deity-grade nascent soul cultivator? A nascent soul cultivator will always be a nascent soul cultivator. Brother Han Ming, you were too gentle and kind before, which made him think you're easy to get along with. I've already given him a few chances. If he can't grasp them, he'll die. Hearing this, Han Ming Zongzi laughed and did not refute. He had a high chance of entering the void return level. What he lacked was resources. As a planet that had just recovered its spirit chi, the spirit chi on Earth was extremely pure and there were many heavenly treasures that could help him enter the void return level. However, what they didn't expect was that most of the spirit chi and heavenly treasures on Earth had been taken by Jiang Tian, his wife and his daughter, and refined into divine powers. So, Han Ming Zongzi's goal was to devour the flesh of Jiang Tian's family to help him reach the void return level. That was why Han Ming Zongzi didn't turn hostile in the beginning. Instead, he used a soft strategy to control Earth. His goal was to wait for the return of Jiang Tian and Zhao Xueqing. In fact, he didn't care about Earth or even the solar system. He had already controlled countless galaxies of this scale. Besides, the other planets in the solar system, except for Earth, weren't suitable for cultivation and survival. Ever since he learned the truth about the destruction of the planets, his goal had always been the blood chi of Jiang Tian's family. Brother Han Ming, I'm right? Fairy Kai Yi's cherry-like lips parted slightly. She picked up the bronze cup and took a sip of the fiery flame wine. Her eyes sparkled as she said, "He's just a barbarian. His cultivation is incomplete and he doesn't know how to use cultivation resources or how to integrate with the great Tao of heaven and earth. What right does Kong Tae-chu have to occupy a revived planet? Kong Tae-chu even claimed to be a Tao ancestor and resisted stubbornly. He doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. We should crush him directly. That's the true nature of the divine sect." To ants, there was no need to reason with them, talk about conciliation and strategy. If he dares to resist, we'll just kill him. She was pretty with delicate facial features and was only at the early stage of the soul formation realm. She was an 8th grade soul formation realm cultivator, which wasn't the top. However, she came from an extraordinary background and was naturally arrogant and domineering. Her words and actions were ruthless, as if she was the only one in the world. What Kai Yi said makes sense. This Zongzi is indeed too soft-hearted. Han Ming's eyes glittered as he nodded. Brother, there's one more thing. Han Che, Chen Shi and the others betrayed us and joined the barbarians. They're a disgrace to the Beihan sect. They deserve to be killed. Han Sheng snorted and said, if we conquer Earth, we must deal with them well. Cutting them into thousands of pieces is already a mercy. We must extract their divine souls and burn them in the fire for 100 years. They'll be tortured until they're better off dead. A group of heavenly talents from other planets nodded. While they were discussing, the entire all-heaven water mirror suddenly turned red and emitted endless red light. There were also bursts of thunder-like explosions that made people's hair stand on end. Did he do it? Everyone subconsciously looked at the all-heaven water mirror. They saw the horrifying picture of Jiang Tian tearing apart 10,000 core formation stage cultivators, 800 crystal warships, and 10 space fortresses with his physical body like an unsheathed heavenly saber. The heavenly talents from other planets were stunned and disbelief was written all over their faces. What? He's strong enough to tear apart the formation? Han Ming couldn't sit still anymore. He stood up with a terrified look. Countless broken limbs were scattered in the universe, glittering with the light of blood. The crystal warships were torn apart and their remains were shining with a metallic luster. Some of them even turned into molten iron and were quickly frozen by the coldness of the universe, spreading out in all kinds of weird shapes like abstract paintings. Jiang Tian's attack was equivalent to the attack of a peak-stage deity-grade soul formation cultivator. He immediately created a path of blood and fire in the terrifying formation. Thousands of golden core cultivators were killed, 100 crystal warships were penetrated and even a space fortress was cracked. Everyone in the 9 heavens, 10 earths stared at this scene with their mouths agape. On the war chariots pulled by divine beasts in the extraterrestrial battlefield, the soul formation cultivators of the 5 divine sects were stunned. They had never thought that Jiang Tian would be so powerful. That was a military formation. Countless golden core cultivators had gathered and each of the warships was a deity artifact. They were arranged according to the laws of the world, just like sand and cement. They were soft, but when water was mixed with a certain ratio, they would turn into concrete and become indestructible. Besides, there were many powerful divine warriors. And yet, Jiang Tian had torn it apart. That was earth-shattering. Not many people could do that even in the Beidou family. At the moment, the heavenly talents from other planets in the Yuntian Palace couldn't even hold their glasses. The rainbow-winged fairy even dropped the bronze glass in her hand, making a clanking sound. Her face was pale and her eyes were wide open with deep fear and shock. Kill him. Otherwise, you can kill yourself to atone for your sins. Han Ming had never suffered such a loss and setback, and he couldn't bear it at all. His handsome face revealed a somewhat harsh and ungrateful expression, and anger rose in his eyes. His killing intent was as cold as a blade as he flung his sleeve and spoke through his divine sense. Kong Teichu is talented. He's probably using a grand divine power of the universe. If we don't kill him while he's still weak, he'll definitely come back in the future. Gui Yufan stood up and patted his storage ring. The profound armor flew out and covered his body. He was ready for battle. A terrifying murderous aura rose to the sky and he said in a deep voice, his murderous aura surged and he said, "We have to prepare for the worst. If the 4 divine sects can't defeat him, you and I will kill him ourselves." Many heavenly talents from other planets nodded. Send a message to the Wuji sect and the Feiyang sect in the Alcade galaxy. Tell them I've asked them to come and kill him. After that, I'll give them 2 planets with life. Han Ming was still worried. He glanced at Han Sheng and said with a low voice, "Yes, brother." Han Sheng immediately went out to send the message. This time, the Beidou family in the solar system is going all out. Dozens of soul formation grand cultivators. At least 20 of them are in the top 100 of the galaxy roll. Looks like Han Ming Zongzi is really angry. As soon as these words were spoken, many geniuses from other realms sucked in a breath of cold air and looked at Han Ming in shock and fear. Poor Kongdi. On the pretty face of Fairy Tsai, there was also a hint of sympathy as she sighed in her heart. The Wuji sect and the Feiyang sect are as powerful as the Banished Deity Hall and the Beihan sect. They're all top divine sects, not comparable to second-rate divine sects like the Boundless sect. Kong Teichu is too arrogant. He doesn't know that the strong are easy to break. Sometimes, it's wise to lower your head in the face of power. Even if he's the child of a natural deity or the reincarnation of a grand cultivator from the central galaxy, so what? I'm afraid he can only be killed in the cradle and crushed to pieces. That was the power of the Behan sect. They had a history of hundreds of thousands of years, dominating the star ocean and controlling hundreds of colonized planets. They also had a wide network of connections and friendships among the cultivation sects in the 7 solar systems of the Beidou region. If they really wanted to kill someone, they could even kill them with resources. Chapter 1764. Kill him. Otherwise, you'll have to kill yourselves. Hanming Zongzi's divine will was heard. Divine Lord Bing Jian, the palace master of Snow God Palace, turned pale and became extremely serious. He deeply knew how domineering Hanming Zongzi was, and how vicious he was. This wasn't a joke. If they didn't perform well and didn't kill Jiang Tian, Hanming Zongzi would definitely kill them. He would tear these divine emperors into pieces and destroy the Snow God Palace and other affiliated sections. Although they knew that Jiang Tian was powerful, they had to fight with all their might under Hanming Zongzi's suppression. Zongzi, you have to kill him. Divine Lord Bing Jian ordered as he grabbed the reins of the laws in his hand. Immediately, the black jade qilin that was pulling the black ice chariot, which was hundreds of feet long, suddenly stood up on its crystalline scales that were like black gold and profound jade. It let out an angry roar that shook the sky, and its pitch-black eyes that flowed with an icy aura stared at Jiang Tian. An enormous pressure surged out from its body like a stormy sea. Apparently, the qilin with the bloodline of a divine beast had sensed its master's anger and killing intent. Kong Teichu is too arrogant. He thinks he's talented and dares to attack the Behan sect. He doesn't know how many elites like him we've killed. The sect master of the Beihuang sect, Gu Mang Divine Lord, shook his head as if he had already sentenced Jiang Tian to death. Kill him. How dare he offend the dignity of the Mizang planet region? He'll die 100 times to atone for it. The sect master of the Arctic sect, Divine Lord Evil Moon, stared at Jiang Tian with strong killing intent. A devilish blood moon rose behind him. It had a circumference of 5 kilometers, and it was condensed from the laws. However, it was incomparably heavy and filled with a foul, gloomy, and cold aura. It was as if countless blood demons, evil spirits, and ghosts resided on it, and they roared ferociously and stole one's soul. That's right. How dare he offend Hanming Zongzi? He'll die 100 times to atone for it. Kill him and avenge sect master Wia and Elder Pai. This kid is seeking his own death. On the other hand, the ones that were filled with the most killing intent and were on the verge of going insane were the few elders of the Boundless sect. All of them were angered to the point their lungs were about to explode, and they gnashed their teeth and wished for nothing more than to tear Jiang Tian into pieces. Their sovereign Wu Yang Grand Elder Pai Yi had both died tragically. This was a great loss. It was equivalent to losing the pillars that supported the sect. Their vitality was greatly damaged. Perhaps it would take several hundred years for them to recover to their peak state. Rumble. Under the urging of the Divine Lords, the Golden Core and nascent Soul Cultivators, as well as the space battleships and fortresses, quickly regrouped and got into formation. They formed a formation of 1,000 people, with ships protecting them and fortresses suppressing them. Very quickly, the starry sky was once again filled with 100 military formations. Their murderous aura was dense, and their ships and weapons stood in great numbers in a square formation. They surrounded Jiang Tian and surrounded him in the middle. Rumble. Jiang Tian showed his true form, holding the azure lotus and the golden lotus in his hand. His robe fluttered in the wind and his shoulder-length hair cascaded down like a waterfall. His eyes were calm and his temperament was peerless, as if he were a deity. What's that? The azure lotus and the golden lotus. It's ranked 10th on the list of exotic flowers and wood. Seeing Jiang Tian take out his weapon, many divine lords looked greedy and their saliva almost flowed out. There were too many legends about the golden lotus of the bitter sea and the golden lotus of the bitter sea. There were many legends about it. Even in the most hostile environment, it could take in the spirit chi of the world and grow vigorously. It could even produce chaotic energy. He actually has such a heavenly treasure? It's a peak stage Tao artifact or even a quasi-sacred weapon. Even Bing Jian, Evil Moon, Gu Mang and the other top divine lords couldn't stay calm. They stared at the azure lotus and the golden lotus in Jiang Tian's hand and didn't want to look away for a long time. The astral winds of the universe blew past, causing the space to ripple. The green lotus leaves swayed, and golden lotus flowers bloomed one after another. They actually emitted waves of metallic clanging sounds, but the rich vitality was also vigorous and exuberant. It made people feel as if they had arrived at the beginning of the world's creation. There was actually a hazy primal chaos aura. That item was extremely valuable. It could nourish its owner and produce chaotic energy, which could be used to attack. It was extremely rare even in the Big Dipper galaxy, and its value was comparable to that of a planet with life. If one could take it away, it would be a great blessing, a great opportunity, and a great creation. According to the ancient books, the ancient earth and the deity land's heavenly court were the cultivation's sacred grounds of the entire Milky Way. They were extremely prosperous and had many heavenly treasures. I didn't believe it at first. Now that I've seen this treasure, it seems that the rumors are true. Divine Lord Evil Moon's eyes glittered and his viciousness became more intense. Opportunities are found in danger. If we kill this guy, we'll definitely get a great harvest. The ancient Mang Divine Lord was also tempted and he almost drooled. At first, they were only afraid of Han Ming Zongzi's power and had no choice but to fight. However, when they saw the treasure in Jiang Tian's hand, they were all envious and wanted to kill him immediately to take it away. Besides, that was only the beginning of the battle. If Jiang Tian took it out, it definitely wasn't his trump card. Who knew what other heavenly treasures Jiang Tian had? Haha, do you want it? If you want it, come and take it. Jiang Tian looked at the azure lotus and golden lotus in his hand and chuckled. I still have a lot of treasures like this. I'm just afraid that I'll cut you into pieces before you get it. Let's do it together. In the end, Divine Lord Bing Jian gave the order. When Jiang Tian attacked for the first time, he tore apart the army formation with his body. That was a surprise attack, and the army of the 5 divine sects didn't expect that Jiang Tian would suddenly attack, so they didn't use any power. But this time, however, Jiang Tian encountered the joint attack of the divine sects battle formation. Those golden core cultivators weren't scattered rogue cultivators. They were terrifying beings who had been carefully trained by the divine sects and had gone through countless cruel trainings and battles. They had walked out of blood and fire and were terrifying beings who had survived hundreds of battles. They were well-disciplined, wearing standard armor and holding standard Dharma treasures and weapons. All of them were spirit treasures and true artifacts. Besides, their Dharma treasures were engraved with the same rune arrays. Through those rune arrays, their attacks were unified as if they had been magnified by a magnifying glass and gathered in one place. It was equal to the attack of 1,000 people and completely surpassed the attack of a soul formation cultivator. Such a battle formation had never failed in the battles in the Star Ocean. It was easy for them to kill soul formation cultivators. The horn was blown and it sounded ancient and boundless. It came from all directions and pierced through the air, making people's hearts tremble. 100,000 soldiers shouted together and the battleships surrounded Jiang Tian. Countless golden flames, azure thunderbolts, weapons, flying swords and starlight were all the manifestations of Dharma laws. They pierced through the air and attacked Jiang Tian from all directions. What did 1,000 golden core perfected cultivators mean? They were the most powerful overlords among the golden core cultivators and had grades. The normal golden core cultivators of the ruins of deity and the other dimensions of the solar system couldn't compare to them. Among them, there were 100 nascent soul heavenly lords commanding. Not even a peak stage soul formation cultivator would be able to resist such a terrifying attack. Right then, 100,000 golden core cultivators were attacking together. Besides, the Tao artifacts on the battleships and fortresses also opened fire. Many of them were super-large Tao artifacts that were comparable to sacred weapons. Rumble. In the world. The world was in chaos, as if the sun and the moon were upside down. Many Dharma laws a few miles long flashed across the sky, and the fragments of the grand Tao flew around. On the battlefield, there were many formations and battleships. Countless weapons pointed to the sky like a dense forest, flashing with a frightening cold aura. Countless pieces of armor let out ear-piercing clanging sounds as they moved. In every military formation, the yuan qi around the extraterrestrial golden core warriors was boiling. Luster filled the air like rising clouds. When they attacked, the yuan qi, the luster, and the clouds instantly merged into one. From afar, it was as if 1,000 golden core warriors had formed a single person, breathing and moving. When this coordinated attack began, the mortal cultivators on Earth all revealed expressions of shock and fear. They were worried for Jiang Tian. This formation has killed at least 30 Soul Formation Divine Lords in the past 300 years. Even Hanch Divine Prince clenched his fists and trembled slightly. He was apparently extremely nervous. It's time to let you know the real power of the 5 Divine Sex formations. This is called Sand Makes a Tower. Even a sacred-grade soul formation cultivator can torture you to death. Bing Jian, Evil Moon, Gu Mang, and the other divine lords from other planets were all gloating, as if they were sure they would win. Jiang Tian, who was surrounded by thousands of soldiers, gently waved the azure lotus and the golden lotus. Instantly, countless golden lotuses, shining with a golden metallic luster, flew into the air with clanging sounds. In an instant, the myriad of changes connected together like a huge lotus flower, surrounding Jiang Tian, and Jiang Tian was that stamen. 1,000 lotuses. Rise. That was a defensive divine power that Jiang Tian had created based on that treasure. The azure lotus and the golden lotus infused with the gung metal divine law, turning into 1,000 lotus petals as a defense. It was extremely dense, protecting him inside. It could even turn alien Dharma laws into wood Dharma laws to nourish itself. That was the terror of a peak-stage Tao artifact. Clang, clang. Many precepts and great path attacks hit the 1,000 lotuses, but they were like eggs hitting a rock. They immediately exploded and were utterly defeated. All kinds of precepts collided with each other, obliterating the void and tearing the space apart. The sky was shaking, and the stars seemed to be swaying. Even though the 1,000 lotuses were a bit shaken, they went back to normal after a short while. Apparently, they couldn't hurt Jiang Tian. What? How is that possible? Exclaims of surprise rose and fell, and they resounded throughout the entire battlefield. Many cultivators from other planets who had been raging with viciousness were terrified. Their clothes were drenched in cold sweat and their legs were shaking. Is this kid's strength so tyrannical? 100,000 soldiers, attack together. What kind of body does he have? What divine power does he use? Even Evil Moon, Gu Mang, and the other peak-stage soul formation cultivators were in disbelief. The commander of the battlefield, Divine Lord Ice Mirror, was even more furious. He roared, "Fight again! I don't believe he can withstand it." Attack again? It's my turn. However, Jiang Tian didn't give them a chance. The 1,000 lotuses dispersed and countless petals turned into Dharma laws, surging out of the lotus. It's been a long time since I had a good battle. I hope you won't disappoint me. On the other hand, Jiang Tianjuan's face was full of mockery. His desire to battle soared and shot through the clouds. Before the army realized what was going on, he had already shot to the sky. The Kunpeng Dharma form appeared behind him and turned into a beam of light, flashing into the nearest army. Swish! Jiang Tianqing's golden lotus had already swung down at lightning speed. Ear-splitting noises echoed non-stop. The laws were broken, and the entire battle array fell apart. The 8 crystal warships were all torn apart like paper under the cutting of countless sharp golden lotuses. The components such as the engine, the crystals, and the runes exploded at the same time, turning into terrifying flowers of fire. 1,000 golden core cultivators and dozens of nascent soul cultivators in the army were all killed. He had destroyed 8 warships and killed 1,000 perfected cultivators with one attack. Chapter 1765. My son, back off. Many divine lords were stunned by Jiang Tian's shocking attack. They were stunned. Divine Lord Ice Mirror's expression suddenly changed. He opened his hand and countless laws of extreme cold and profound ice laws surged towards Jiang Tian. At the same time, he let out a cry filled with panic and fear. The army that Jiang Tian had killed belonged to the Snow God Hall, and the one in charge was Bing Jian's beloved son, young Master Bing Futian. At this moment, after Jiang Tian destroyed the army formation, he immediately used the extreme speed of the Kunpeng and broke through the space. He was like a dragon soaring into the sky and a phoenix dancing in the 9 heavens. The Ice Mirror Divine Lord's extreme cold mystic ice laws all missed. Jiang Tian had already charged towards the stunned Bing Futian. With a sharp sound, Jiang Tianqing's golden lotus brushed past Bing Futian casually. Bing Futian was easily cut into countless pieces like tofu. His entire body was sliced into slices as it floated in the air and scattered in all directions. Even the gods couldn't avoid it. Bing Futian was also a soul formation cultivator with a good grade. He was at the mid-stage of the 8th grade and had all kinds of terrifying divine powers. He was probably even a bit more powerful than the old god Song Ming from the ruins of deities. If Jiang Tian had met him before he cultivated, he would have had a tough battle. At least, he wouldn't have killed him so easily. But then, his entire body had transformed into slices that fluttered throughout the sky while his blood sprayed through the sky, and the crystalline bones, muscles, and veins that flickered with a faint glow could still be seen at the severed end of his body. At this moment, he was like a fragile piece of tofu that was sliced into countless slices by Jiang Tian, and it was truly miserable to the extreme. You can eat hot pot now. The big black dog, who had already arrived on the battlefield and was standing on the rising sun outside of the battlefield, was drooling. Right then, Jiang Tian gently brushed past Bing Futian's indestructible body, Dharma laws of ice and the Dharma artifact robe, armor and Dharma artifacts that could withstand hundreds of nuclear explosions didn't work at all. He couldn't even withstand a single blow. Bing Futian is dead. The might of a single swipe is actually so terrifying. Many people were dumbfounded, unable to react. Bing Futian was the young lord of the Heavenly Snow Hall and the future successor of the Heavenly Snow Hall. Under the Ice Mirror, he was recognized as the strongest person in the holy sect. He was even comparable to many of the elders. Normal soul formation cultivators were no match for him. They had to cultivate for thousands of years and reach the peak of the soul formation realm to be able to fight against him. And now he had been killed by Jiang Tian with a light brush. Jiang Tian, in particular, fought too casually. With the green lotus and the golden lotus in his hand, he moved with ease. He didn't look like a god of slaughter, but more like an outsider who didn't care about worldly affairs and didn't want to compete with others. Yet, he killed Bing Futian so easily. How could everyone not be shocked? The treasure beast that pulled the carriage for Bing Futian was an ice jade dragon that was dozens of feet long. It even let out an earth-shattering roar at Jiang Tian, making the troops around step back. The soul formation cultivators in the formation were startled. They then opened their mouths and spat out a 10-mile ice pillar at Jiang Tian. This pillar of ice and snow pierced through the void, causing space to collapse. A terrifying spatial storm occurred, and the void was frozen and cracked amidst crackling sounds. A few nascent soul heavenly lords who didn't manage to escape in time were entangled by Dharma laws and their nascent souls were frozen. This included a half-step divine transformation realm divine prince whose strength was similar to Han Che's. Half of his body was affected, and the ice laws immediately invaded his body. One of his arms lost its vitality and turned blue and purple. He cut off his entire arm without saying a word and retreated while screaming in pain. "It's the life of ice extinction," a soul formation divine lord exclaimed. This ice jade dragon was the treasure beast of the Snow God Hall. It had the bloodline of a divine beast, and the divine power it inherited was the famous life of ice extinction. It was famous on the Ice Divine Power roll of the North Star and was said to be able to freeze the world and kill all living things. If their ancestors, the real divine beasts, used it, they could even kill the vitality of a planet. Swish, swish. Jiang Tian once again used the extreme speed of the Kunpeng, breaking through the space. His entire body was like a real dragon, soaring into the sky, drawing a strange and twisting dragon-shaped curve. He easily dodged the life-extinguishing ice and flew to the sky above the ice jade dragon. Then he raised the azure lotus golden lotus calmly and swung it down. The space was torn apart. Beams of golden light fell from the sky like a waterfall, densely packed and stacked on top of each other, forming a terrifying curtain of light that cut off the sky. Those were the halos and flames of the terrifying Gingjin lotuses, which cut straight at the ice jade dragon. Spare me! I can be your mount. The ice jade horn dragon could feel the terror of the peerless killing intent. The horns on its head looked extremely ferocious and terrifying. Its scaly face could not help but reveal a human-like expression of fear. It wanted to turn its head or retreat, but it was too late. Sorry, I have a purple gold true dragon. My bloodline is much purer than yours. Jiang Tian did not show any mercy. He sneered and continued to attack. Master, I was right to follow you. You really love me the most. I'm willing to die for you. In the distance, the purple gold true dragon on top of the rising sun battleship heard this and wiped away its non-existent tears. It was very touched. The ice jade hornless dragon's mountain-like head was the first to be severed from its neck. Its black jade-like eyes were still filled with unwillingness and fear, as if it couldn't believe that it had died in such a backward and destitute star field. After that, the dragon's entire body, which was over 30 meters long, shattered into pieces. Its internal organs, remains, and dragon blood, which was overflowing with cold air, sprayed out like flowers scattered by a goddess. It was a horrible sight to behold. Everything happened too quickly. Jiang Tian had broken through the army formation, killed Bing Futian, and slaughtered the ice jade dragon in the blink of an eye. Only then did Divine Lord Bing Jie react. Kong Teichu, you killed my beloved son and my disciple. I'll be a fool if I don't cut you into pieces today. At that moment, the Divine Lord of Ice Mirror was extremely furious. His long hair shot up into the sky and a violent murderous aura soared into the sky. The extreme cold mystic ice law rumbled and trembled, as if it was going to freeze the entire earth. He was shocked because Jiang Tian was so powerful. He had broken the formation and killed soul formation cultivators as if he were cutting grass. He was furious because his beloved son, Bing Futian, and half of the elites of his sect had died in Jiang Tian's hands. It wasn't a matter of being embarrassed, it was a real drop in power. If they returned to the Mizar planet system, the Snow God Temple would almost fall out of the top 10 divine sects in the star area. Kill! The infuriated Divine Lord Ice Mirror shook the reins of laws. The black jade Qilin roared into the sky and drove the black ice chariot toward Jiang Tian. At the same time, he waved his sleeve and a flying sword flew out towards Jiang Tian. Chapter 1766. The flying sword was less than 3 feet long and looked crystal clear, as if it were carved out of ice. There were strange patterns all over it, which made it look beautiful and exquisite. However, there was an endless and terrifying chill condensed on it. It froze the space and everything. When it swept across the void, there were snow-white, lonely, and cold stars appearing around it, like flying swords from the distant snow country. That was a supreme-grade Dao artifact. It was no longer a 9th-grade Dao artifact. It was close to a quasi-divine weapon and was extremely powerful. Clang! This time, Jiang Tian formed a palm with his left hand and pushed it towards the strange flying sword that was shooting towards him. It seemed casual, but it was actually the first time Jiang Tian had used his nascent soul. Forbidden region! The 9 orifices chaotic divine infant opened its eyes and the divine plate behind it spun. The red bird divine law surged out and formed a sea of fire that drowned the ice flying sword. It spun again, and the divine law of sea-calming ice also merged with it silently. Crack, crack. Terrifying cracking sounds shook the sky. The ice-flying sword didn't rush out of the sea of fire. Instead, it jumped up and down like a caged beast struggling. What? Let's go! Divine Lord Ice Mirror couldn't believe his eyes. This flying ice sword was the most precious treasure of the Snow God Temple. It had been refined over hundreds of thousands of years by the sect masters of the Snow God Temple. It had extracted the endless cold air from many remote and cold ice planets and used the ninth heaven ice sword in the depths of the universe to create it. It could freeze the heavens and freeze the earth, destroying everything. But then, it was frozen by Jiang Tian's forbidden region. The fire of Dharma laws was burning and seemed to be melting the ice sword. He couldn't accept it. He was already at the soul formation level and could control Dharma laws with ease. He could set up a forbidden region by raising his hand, but his natal artifact, which had been refined for thousands of years, couldn't break through the forbidden region formed by Jiang Tian, a nascent soul cultivator. But he didn't know. No matter how strong and smooth his Dharma laws were, they were just normal Dharma laws. They hadn't even reached the sacred grade. On the other hand, Jiang Tian's law was a dignified divine grade law. It was called the nascent soul forbidden domain, but it was actually an extremely powerful domain. He had long controlled the power of space. In Jiang Tian's forbidden zone, even the immortal laws could be suppressed, let alone him. Moreover, Jiang Tian had fused two types of nomological laws, which was equivalent to a double forbidden domain. The sea-calming ice god was like a cage of heaven and earth, and the vermilion bird divine law was like a crazed burning and strangling. Fellow Taoists, my flying sword has been sealed. Let's attack together. If we don't get rid of this kid, Han Ming Zongzi will be enraged and will be in big trouble. Unable to get his flying sword out or retrieve it, Sir God Bingjian was extremely frustrated. As he drove the chariot madly towards Jiang Tian, he let out a roar to boost the morale of his men, telling them to charge towards Jiang Tian. Do you want this treasure? Let's see if you can take it. Jiang Tian didn't care about the flying ice sword at all. He allowed the two types of laws to imprison it. He raised his eyebrows and stepped out of the void. He took the initiative to attack. He was like a Kuan-Peng that swept across the 9 heavens and 10 earths as he charged toward divine sovereign Bingjia. When he was 10 miles away, suddenly, the azure lotus golden lotus shook and countless petals flew out towards Jiang Tian. The golden lotus bloomed in the sky. With a thought, the flowers bloomed and the world reigned supreme. Numerous golden lotuses were crystalline and translucent, and they were like celestial flowers that bloomed with radiance and were suffused with auspicious radiance, causing them to seem gorgeous and moving. Jiang Tian stood lazily in midair like a smiling celestial that was holding a flower, and he was flawless and otherworldly. Brother Qilin, try your best to resist. Fellow Taoists, give me a hand. However, Sir God Bingjian, who was facing the petals of the golden lotuses, was terrified. He was alarmed and roared as if he was facing a formidable enemy. The black jade Qilin was also a guardian beast. It had the bloodline of a divine beast and its strength was equivalent to a peak-stage soul formation cultivator. It was as powerful as the ice jade dragon that had been killed earlier. Hearing this, the treasure beast immediately opened its bloody mouth and roared. Immediately, space froze, turning into layer upon layer of law ice. It directly rushed up a few hundred feet high, covering the sky and covering the sun. It was like a 1,000-feet-high wall, wanting to block Jiang Tian's attack. Sir God Bingjian's blue eyes were filled with madness. He also roared and activated the dark ice nomological laws. Amidst loud clanging sounds, many lofty and steep snow mountains descended from the sky. They were all several thousand meters tall and were completely condensed from laws. Heavy snow spread out, smashing toward the gung gold lotuses that Jiang Tian had sent out. At the same time, he slapped his storage ring and took out a dozen defensive doctrine artifacts. The chariot also shone brightly and formed layers of dark ice shields. However, they were still helpless against Jiang Tian's peerless divine law attack. They couldn't resist the power of the azure lotus golden lotus. Chi. The dazzling and resplendent golden lotus was like a revolving excavator as it pierced through layer after layer of snow, sliced apart numerous Tao artifacts, shattered the profound ice laws, and smashed heavily onto the ice mirror divine monarch. Ah! Divine sovereign Bing Jian screamed in pain as he spat out a mouthful of blood that emitted a horrifying cold aura. He was blown away like a kite with a broken string. His mystic ice-heavy armor was broken and many cracks appeared on his body. Obviously, he was severely wounded. "Brother Qilin, help me." The ice mirror divine lord steadied himself with great difficulty. He spun around like a top, stepping on the laws of ice as if he was stepping on a bridge of ice and snow. He landed on a warship and shouted with fear on his face. The defensive power of a war chariot surpassed that of a normal warship and was comparable to a fortress. However, it was more flexible and flexible, allowing it to break through the void in an instant. Whether it was attacking or escaping, it was indispensable. At this moment, he deeply felt how powerful Jiang Tian was. He didn't dare to be careless and asked for the help of the precious beast and war chariot. "I'm not going." What put everyone in a difficult position was that Ink Jade Qilin actually shook its head and flatly refused. "He's too powerful. I'll die." "Didn't you see that the Ice Jade Dragon is dead?" The Ink Jade Qilin spoke in human language with a look of deep fear. A wise man submits to circumstances. This Qilin, like me, is good at judging the situation and has already sensed the supreme majesty of my lord. The purple gold true dragon, who had turned into a big black dog, was sitting cross-legged on the rising sun. In the name of guarding Zhao Xueqing, it was protected by Zhao Xueqing. At this moment, it also gave a thumbs up to the Ink Jade Qilin. In one sentence, it even praised the Ink Jade Qilin, Jiang Tian, and itself. "How dare you?" Seeing Jiang Tian step forward, the Ice Mirror Divine Lord couldn't wait any longer. He was both shocked and angry. "For 10,000 years, the Snow God Hall has raised you, correct you, that's worship." The Ink Jade Qilin was very afraid of Jiang Tian, but when facing the Ice Mirror Divine Lord, it was very arrogant. It shouted anxiously, "You worship me, but I've also contributed to the sect. Have you given your life to me? You want me to work for you?" "Ha, this Ink Jade Qilin is so rebellious. I like it." The big black dog laughed loudly, and tears came out of his eyes. "Big Black, you can't learn from it." Zhao Xueqing was also overjoyed. She didn't expect the Ink Jade Qilin to betray and escape at the last minute to be so righteous. "Ice Mirror, what are you staring at? If you have the guts, come and hit me. I'm not doing this anymore." The Ink Jade Qilin broke the nomological reins and kicked off the war chariot. Then, it flew into the sky and approached the big black dog. It said timidly, "This black-skinned brother, do you have any melon seeds to eat?" Seeing people fight, I naturally have to eat some melon seeds. Chapter 1767. I don't have seeds, but I have spicy strips. The large black dog took out a handful of specially made spicy strips and cautiously moved closer to Zhao Xueqing. The black jade Qilin also transformed to 2 meters tall and sat down cross-legged. It took a few bites of the spicy strip and suddenly said, "Do you know? Qilins are also a type of true dragon bloodline. Strictly speaking, we are the same species." "Hee, don't pretend to be friends. My lord is benevolent and always punishes the evildoers. You're not the one who planned the invasion of Earth, so what are you afraid of?" The large black dog glanced at it and said disdainfully. The black jade Qilin suddenly blushed and rubbed against it. It said in a low voice, "Actually, I'm female. Didn't you say, crawl for me? Bing Jian also calls you Brother Qilin. How did you become a mother? Then you should say, crawl for me." "I don't read much, so don't lie to me," the large black dog said in surprise. "It's just a catchphrase. After all, it's more domineering and fits the image of a treasure beast. Besides, if Bing Jian calls me Sister Qilin, it doesn't sound good on the battlefield." The black jade Qilin said seriously. "Indeed. My lord doesn't pay much attention to this. He always calls me Big Black on the battlefield, so he should call me Black Emperor or Black Emperor. The large black dog nodded and said excitedly, Mistress, don't you think you should give me a more domineering name? Don't mind these details. Zhao Xueqing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Do you eat? Mizar Galaxy, Kuei Planet specialty, original flavor. Foodies love it the most. To be honest, I'm a foodie too. I like the hot pot on Earth very much. This spicy strip is also not bad. Rolling its eyes, the black jade Qilin patted its storage bag and inserted a large, colorful sunflower that looked like a giant umbrella into the scales on its head. Then, it took out a melon seed that was as large as a fist and said fawningly, What do you mean? You talk about bloodline, gender, and hobbies. The large black dog was dazed for a moment, and then suddenly came to a realization. He jumped up in fright. It hid on the other side of Zhao Xueqing and cried in panic, You, don't be like this. I'm still young, not even 100 years old. You're already tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands of years old. You're old enough to be my grandmother. Mistress, please protect me. It covets my beauty. I might not be able to defeat it. Stop fooling around. Zhao Xueqing's smile had already faded. She nervously looked at the field. When the large black dog was confessed, Jiang Tian's battle had already reached its climax. When Jiang Tian stepped into the air and charged at Divine Lord Ice Mirror. Fellow Taoist Ice Mirror, let me help you. The ancient Mang Divine Lord roared and joined the battle with 3 Divine Transformation Realm Elders of the Northern Baron sect. At that moment, many semi-god realm extraterrestrial cultivators knew that the military formation could not cause any effective harm to Jiang Tian. It was like throwing an egg at a rock. Therefore, they decided to preserve their strength instead of wasting their energy. Jiang Tian immediately became surrounded by dangers. Thousand Mountain Seal. The ancient Mang Divine Lord stood in the chariot pulled by the red fire iron tiger. His sleeves fluttered in the wind, and his hair and beard were white. He looked old and sage-like, but there were many mountains floating behind him, which were the mountain laws he had refined. His attacks were also ruthless. As he formed a seal with his fingers and palms, he waved his hand and slapped down. The thousands of mountains behind him whistled and flew out. They suddenly expanded with an ancient and boundless aura, crushing the void and shattering the laws. They pressed down on Jiang Tian with an unstoppable force. That was a grand divine power he had refined for 10,000 years while standing on the planet in the Northern Baron region. When he performed it right then, it was as powerful as Divine Lord Ice Mirrors. It might even be more powerful. Crack crack. Thousands of mountains descended in unison, and they were like meteors that struck the sky. Even the space seemed like a weak wooden bridge that couldn't bear the weight of gravity, and it creaked strangely. Unlike Ice Mirror's extreme ice, his Thousand Mountain Seal was heavier and more ancient. It gave off the feeling of a heavy sword without a sharp edge, as if it could overcome everything with brute force. Open! Jiang Tian had to give up on his plan to chase and kill Ice Mirror. He shook the green lotus in his hand and stabbed towards the sky. Suddenly, the 3 combinations of yin and yang, one was yin and one was yang, and the other was yang. The laws were not fixed, and the Gung Jin Dragon Spears were formed under his will. Then the Gung Jin Dragon Spears shot into the sky and pierced through the mountains. The thousands of mountains that were said to be able to shatter the stars and pierce through the earth exploded under the Gung Jin Dragon Spears. The laws that belonged to the earth and stone element exploded in all directions, turning into wisps of vital energy that drifted in the air. How? The ancient Mang Divine Lord was shocked. He raised his long white eyebrows and a look of disbelief appeared on his thin and old face. Jiang Tian's Gung Jin Dragon Spears seemed to be much smaller, like a silver needle picking up a giant rock. However, they miraculously pierced the weakest point of the laws of the mountains. Like a butcher dismembering an ox, they penetrated the gaps between the laws of the mountains and were easily solved. Then, the laws of the other 3 soul formation realm cultivators of the Northern Baron sect were also dissolved by Jiang Tian. This kid's divine sense is extraordinary. His vast mind power can see the mountains as if they were palm prints. I have to be very careful, the ancient Mang Divine Lord warned himself. However, Han Ming Zongzi had already given the order. There was no way he could back down. Therefore, he formed another seal and slapped out. Again. The laws had already dispersed. The mountains that were formed again were not as heavy as before. Therefore, the ancient Mang Divine Lord shook the reins of the laws that bound the Red Flame Iron Tiger and shouted, "Red Flame, go!" Haha, as if you're instigating an evil dog. And yet, this bastard still listens to you and never dares to go against you. The Black Jade Qilin mocked. The Red Flame Iron Tiger was 1,000 feet long. It was surrounded by flames and looked majestic. It roared at the sky and dashed towards Jiang Tian. Soon, it opened its mouth and spat out 1,000 feet long black flame. The flame burned through the air, leaving a long black mark in the air, like the mark of lava. There were a lot of meteorites in this foreign battlefield. They were thousands of meters wide and were lying in the air. The exposed parts of them were covered in a metallic luster after billions of years of being blown by the wind and rain in the universe. They were strong enough that not even a nascent soul realm cultivator could destroy them easily. There were also the remains of many battleships and fortresses made of strange metals that were indestructible. However, they couldn't withstand the black flame at all. They collapsed in an instant or turned into liquid metal. The flame was as strong as a dragon and seemed to be intelligent. It chased after Jiang Tian like a maggot attached to a bone. Jiang Tian used the Kunpeng's extreme speed and changed his direction 9 times in an instant. He even used the Great Chaotic Hole Art to break open the space before dodging it. Ha! Kong Teichu had a strand of hair burned off. I thought you were the child of a true god and that your body was indestructible and indestructible. You can't even defeat my mount. What's so great about you? Let's end this quickly. Attack together. Kill him. On the other hand, the ancient Mang Divine Sovereign was even more elated. Taking advantage of the situation, he led his 3 Divine Sovereign Elders to surround Jiang Tian from all directions and launch a new round of attacks. You killed my beloved son, damaged my holy clan and injured me. If I don't take revenge, I won't be able to face the world. As for Divine Lord Ice Mirror, after using a few secret techniques and peerless elixirs to heal himself, he summoned a mammoth war chariot and brought a few Divine Lords with him. Gritting his teeth, he came back with great hatred. Kill him and avenge our sect master, Divine Lord Wuya. The sect master of the Boundless sect had been killed by Jiang Tian and the sect had almost been exterminated by Jiang Tian. The remaining elders and disciples hated Jiang Tian to the core. The remaining 2 Soul Formation elders also attacked. Me too! Divine Lord Xieyu of the North Pole sect also shouted and joined the battle. At that moment, apart from the Soul Formation Grand Cultivators of the Freezing North sect who were in charge of supervising the battle, on the battlefield, all the Sir Gods of the allied forces of the 5 major holy sects had attacked Jiang Tian. Damn it! A cold glint flashed across Jiang Tian's eyes as he looked at the few strands of curly black hair on his shoulder. Anger slowly boiled in his heart. Even though it wasn't a serious injury, Jiang Tian was enraged. The increase in power would bring about a change in mentality. When Jiang Tian came out of seclusion after reaching the mid-stage of the nascent soul level, he thought he could easily deal with all the peak stage or half-saints among the 9 soul formation cultivators, except for the sacred and deity soul formation cultivators. But he had never thought that he would be so embarrassed by an animal and a few strands of his hair were burnt. I'm too slow in killing people. I have to show my real strength. Qing'er is going to laugh at me. Facing the enemies coming from all directions, Jiang Tian looked calm. He heaved a sigh and gave Zhao Xueqing a sweet smile. Kong Teichu, if you kneel down and surrender, will only kill you and won't hurt the innocent. Otherwise, your sect will be destroyed and earth will be bathed in blood. The ancient Mang Divine Lord's killing intent was heavy. With a roar, he drove the war chariot and charged at Jiang Tian. He formed a seal with his fingers and palms, unleashing the Thousand Mountains seal again and attacking Jiang Tian. Shut up. What right do you have to ask me to surrender? You're just an ant. Jiang Tian held the azure lotus golden lotus in his left hand and slapped with his right hand. After a boom, an unimaginable energy was released from Jiang Tian's hand. The entire world shook as if the universe were collapsing, the planets were shattering and the sun and the moon were falling. The extremely terrifying Dharma laws turned into chaotic substances and swept across the entire universe, making countless people's minds tremble. Many soul formation divine lords couldn't stand still and their legs trembled. At that moment, Jiang Tian seemed to have turned into a divine king from the primordial chaos, looking down on everyone. Divine lords were like ants under his feet. Chapter 1768. At the moment, in the boundless sky outside of Earth's gravitational field, Jiang Tian was surrounded by thousands of soldiers. 100,000 golden core cultivators, a few hundred nascent soul cultivators, many battleships, giant space fortresses like ancient mountains and a space city like a star surrounded Jiang Tian. The 10 soul formation divine lords were at the front of the battle formation. Bing Jian, Gu Mang and Evil Moon, the 3 most powerful divine lords, had already mastered the laws of the soul formation level and touched the edge of the grand Tao of the world. The power of laws around them had become solid and there were even some patterns of the grand Tao surrounding them like runes. There were also all kinds of phenomena floating behind them, sacred and powerful. Once a cultivator entered the soul formation level, he would be supported by the world and be on the same level as the world. He would be able to control his own fate. The peak stage soul formation cultivators were the truly powerful ones. They had all kinds of unbelievable divine powers. It wasn't difficult for them to shake the universe, shatter the moon, and step on the universe. They were far more powerful than the nascent soul cultivators and normal soul formation cultivators in the ruins of deities. Bing Jian, Gu Mang and Evil Moon had already touched the edge of the power of the void-returning saints. At least they could feel it. Even though there was only a trace of the power of a saint, it was still terrifying and made them tremble. Not even the other soul formation cultivators could stand next to them. They were surrounded by bright lights and strange phenomena. Dharma laws rumbled and the patterns of the grand Tao of the world were looming, as if they were real deities. And yet, even the powerful ones like Bing Jian, Gu Mang and Evil Moon were terrified at the moment. The power of Jiang Tian's palm was too terrifying. There's a trace of chaotic power. How is that possible? Retreat! Gu Mang, Evil Moon and Divine Lord Bing Jian were terrified and yelled. Even the 9-winged flying centipede that Evil Moon was riding, the red fire tiger that Gu Mang was riding and Bing Jian's mammoth were frightened. They shrank like quails and ran for their lives. At this moment, a dazzling divine disk rose up behind Jiang Tian. It spun rapidly like a mysterious and vast galaxy, surrounded by chaotic energy. The 9 supreme laws merged into one, turning into chaotic laws that were like divine light and immortal light. They poured into Jiang Tian's body and surged to the center of his palm, unleashing and bursting forth. It turned out that when Jiang Tian was in the golden core stage, the divine disk was Jiang Tian's golden core. But now, Jiang Tian had successfully stepped into the nascent soul realm, and the divine disk was the condensation of the divine elephant manifested from Jiang Tian's godly laws. 9 types of godly laws converged, and all of them were completed. What kind of terrifying power was that? Under the illumination of the dazzling divine disk, Jiang Tian's entire body was crystalline and translucent like glass. The vital blood in his body was like the beginning of the chaos, his meridians flowed like rivers of stars, and his surroundings were even covered in rosy clouds that emitted boundless rays of light and auspicious colors. He was dazzling and resplendent to the extreme, and he seemed like an ancient god that had created the heavens and the earth, like a true immortal that had descended from the 9 heavens. Before Jiang Tian, who was surrounded by multicolored light and enveloped by the laws of primal chaos, Gu Mang, Xieyu, Bing Jian, and the others' phenomena were like country bumpkins. It was the difference between a grain of rice and a bright moon in the sky. Their radiance was instantly covered and they lost their splendor. They couldn't be compared at all. Right then, Jiang Tian's chaotic divine body, nine-orifice chaotic divine infant, immortal will and many other godly laws had reached the phenomenal success level. It was the first time he had truly used the chaotic power. It was natural and he could control it with ease. Is he still a nascent soul cultivator? I'm afraid even a sacred-grade nascent soul cultivator doesn't have such terrifying power. Even Han Ming Zongzi didn't have such a terrifying power when he formed a sacred-grade nascent soul. Run! Retreat! 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 In an instant, the cultivators from other planets were frightened and they retreated like stray dogs. The army immediately retreated like a tide. At that moment, many soul formation divine lords couldn't believe it. They retreated in fear, and their eyes were bloodshot with jealousy. Even though they were all soul formation cultivators, their chances of entering the void returning level were only 1% or even lower. However, the power and the grade of Jiang Tian's nascent soul were something they had never seen or heard of before. It could be inferred that Jiang Tian would definitely enter the soul formation cultivator, and his chances of entering the void returning level would be much higher than theirs. It was like a few rich people in a city who were originally superior seeing a bumpkin in the countryside earning tens of billions of yuan, who was far ahead of them and would be someone they would never be able to catch up with in the future. How could they not be envious and jealous? The army was further away. Gu Mang, Evil Moon and Bing Jian had the chariot to increase their speed. Even though they were severely affected, it wasn't fatal. They were only spitting out blood, but they were still able to maintain their divine power. However, the three soul formation cultivators following Gu Mang were the fastest. They didn't have chariots to protect them, and they were only driving small battleships. They couldn't dodge in time. Bang! Under Jiang Tian's palm, the chaotic force surged like an ocean and was as heavy as a continent. The three semigod realm warriors were like three flies that were easily squashed into meat paste. They couldn't fight back at all. The divine body covered by the Taoist artifact armor was like a fragile egg under the pressure of a 1,000-kilogram hammer. It couldn't even withstand a snap of the fingers and was crushed. The spaceship made of 9 heaven dark gold, which could withstand 100 controllable nuclear explosions and stand like a mountain, exploded like paper under the vast chaotic energy. Half of the ship was directly smashed into a metal pancake. Some of it even melted into liquid metal under the terrifyingly high temperature. The many rune arrays carved on it were instantly destroyed. For a time, space surged, strong winds raged, and all sorts of spatial collapses and storms appeared. Divine bones that flickered like gemstones, organs that were suffused with multicolored divine radiance, severed limbs, the wreckage of numerous battleships, and liquid metal exploded and surged towards the surroundings like a celestial maiden scattering flowers. Go to hell! Jiang Tian killed the remaining 3 divine transformation elders of the Huangyuan sect with a single palm. While the other divine transformation and divine lords were still in a daze, the divine disk behind Jiang Tian spun. It was as if a huge sun was shooting across the sky, crashing towards Gu Mang. He held the green lotus golden lotus in one hand and slammed it down. At this moment, the resplendent divine disk was spinning like an eternal divine furnace, providing Jiang Tian with all kinds of god law power. The Kuan-Peng's laws broke through space and its speed was unimaginably fast. In almost the blink of an eye, it traversed 100 miles and arrived before the Gu Mang Divine Lord. My friend, please stop and listen to me. Gu Mang was so scared that his legs were trembling. His face was twitching, and his eyes were filled with fear and despair. At the same time he opened his mouth to beg for mercy, the god in his body roared towards the sky. In an instant, thousands of mountains stretched across the sky, wanting to block Jiang Tian's palm strike. At the same time, the crimson flame iron tiger under him also opened its bloody mouth and shot out huge pillars of flames towards Jiang Tian. Listen to my ass. Jiang Tian cursed. He didn't hold back at all. He continued to attack with his palm. The chaotic energy covered the sky and the earth. It was filled with dazzling celestial light and divine light. It was like a millstone of the 9 heavens. All of ancient Mang's divine abilities and laws, including the imprint of 1,000 mountains and 10,000 peaks, and the pillar of smoke sprayed out by the crimson flame iron tiger, were like an illusion before Jiang Tian's palm, completely obliterated. The red fire tiger at the front and the supreme-grade Taoist artifact war chariot behind it were also destroyed. Countless pieces of gold wrapped in blood turned into flames in the sky. If Gu Mang Divine Lord hadn't abandoned the war chariot and retreated, he would have been smashed into meat paste. Save me. Even so, Gu Mang Divine Lord was greatly affected and let out a miserable cry. His skin and flesh were torn and his divine treasures cracked. His divine body was invaded by the chaotic laws and was blasted 100 miles away. He had already lost the ability to fight. SSS. The divine sect cultivators in the foreign battlefield felt as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over their heads when they saw this scene. The red fire tiger was just an iron fool. A divine beast with the bloodline of a divine beast was treated as a vicious dog by Gu Mang, yet it still worked for him. Now it was killed by a single palm. Serves it right. The black jade Chilant's cute rodent teeth moved as it gnawed on a huge melon seed. Its scaly face revealed a human-like disdain as it mocked. Chapter 1769. Killing a Divine Lord and defeating an army of 10,000 with a single attack. At that moment, even the most arrogant and powerful Divine Lords, Gu Mang, Bing Jian and Evil Moon, were terrified by Jiang Tian's terrifying power. The divine wheel behind Jiang Tian spun like the sun in the sky. The 9 divine laws merged into one and turned into the chaotic energy, making his divine body shine brightly. Endless chaotic energy filled the air and rays of light surrounded him, as if he were an ancient god who had created the world. His every move carried an unstoppable power that could shatter the stars and the moon, shaking the vast universe. That had completely surpassed the limits of their power and reached another level of life. Many divine lords were terrified. Divine Lord Gu Mang, back off. Divine Lord Evil Moon yelled and reminded him. His scalp felt numb, as if there were a lot of worms crawling around. He gritted his teeth and rode the flying centipede towards Jiang Tian, trying to stop Jiang Tian. Kill 10,000 troops on the left, take down the unsetting sun. 10,000 troops on the right, attack Earth. The rest of the troops on the middle, follow me to kill Kong Teichu. Divine Lord Bing Jian yelled with his eyes wide open. As soon as the order was given, the entire army immediately split into 3 groups. Led by a space fortress that looked like the moon, hundreds of starships of the right army formed a long river of battle formation. They turned into a torrent of steel and rushed in the direction of Earth as fast as lightning. The 10,000 golden core cultivators and many nascent soul cultivators among them even let out earth-shattering roars. The crystal spaceships on the left fired their cannons at Zhao Xueqing and the unsetting sun. Countless spaceships on the middle troops, which had the largest scale, moved together and surrounded Jiang Tian, besieging Wei to save Zhao. The situation on the battlefield immediately became complicated. Jiang Tian, I can support you. Just kill your enemies. Zhao Xueqing yelled and stood up. She unsheathed her blade and shouted. Dong dong dong. The unsetting sun immediately started and shot straight into the sky. It seemed clumsy, but its speed was faster than the speed of light. In the vast starry sky, it circled irregularly, nimbly moving, appearing from time to time, madly fighting back. The pillars of lightning and energy shot out by the ships of both sides collided with each other in the sky. Clusters of terrifying flames exploded, tearing apart the space within a radius of hundreds of miles. Thunderous booms erupted from the collision. Zhao Xueqing was even more infuriated. She roared and led the black jade Kylin, the purple gold true dragon, and the rest of the Soul Transformation Stage Corps generals into the enemy's formation fearlessly, fighting the 2 Soul Transformation Stage cultivators who were leading the team. Kong Teichu, this is your own choice. You just had to fight to the death with us. Then don't blame us for massacring Earth. All life on Earth will be exterminated, and you will be the sinner of Earth. You will forever be nailed to the pillar of shame in history. This is the consequence of your stubbornness and stubbornness. The ancient Mang divine lord hid in one of the ships in the Middle Army. He spat out blood and laughed crazily. That day, all the soul transformation stage elders of the Beihuang region were killed and their blood dyed the sky. They had suffered a great loss, which made him hate Jiang Tian to the core. His viciousness and bloodthirstiness were completely stimulated. He thought that Jiang Tian would definitely retreat and defend himself. No matter what, his life was saved for the time being. Do you think I'll be afraid of you if you split up? Divine form of Ing Dragon, rise. Unexpectedly, Jiang Tian's figure swayed, and the dazzling divine disk behind him revolved. One of the galaxies suddenly lit up, and a terrifying aura that was like dark yellow earth soared into the sky. Divine laws appeared, and a phantom of a dragon head and a human body surged out and condensed in the sky. This divine image was extremely material and lifelike, and it was like a clone of Jiang Tian. It was 3 kilometers tall, towering in the heavens and the earth, and it shook the sun and moon. The aura of dark yellow earth coiled around it like a river of stars, and it was extremely dignified and terrifying. The talented golden core perfected cultivators were able to create Dharma forms. Almost every nascent soul heavenly lord could do that. The heavenly lord Dharma forms were able to interfere with the laws of the world, so they were called heavenly forms. Jiang Tian had a chaotic divine infant and a chaotic divine body. What he triggered was the most terrifying divine-grade law in the universe. When it appeared, it was on par with the sky, as if a god had descended. That was why it was called a divine form. Is that his clone? Why doesn't it look like him at all? He controls the law of earth, and it's the most powerful one. He's not weaker than us or even more powerful. In an instant, Evil Moon and Divine Lord Ice Mirror, who were attacking Jiang Tian, were shocked. When they faced Jiang Tian's true body, their hearts were pounding. But now, this was only a clone of Jiang Tian's. But even so, the terrifying laws emitted by the clones still made them unable to withstand it. This was simply too shocking. Divine Emperor Gingjin, rise. Jiang Tian shouted again and stomped his feet. The disk behind him spun again. God Emperor Gingjin, who was emitting an eternal and indestructible aura, appeared. He wore a flat crown with 12 tassels hanging down. He wore a dragon robe and golden armor. He was well versed in both civil and martial arts. He was like an ancient god emperor overlooking the world with deep majesty. There's more. The appearance of the law of metal is at least beyond the 9th grade. Oh my god! What kind of nascent soul is that? In an instant, the entire area was filled with exclamations. Many extraterrestrial cultivators felt the terrifying pressure and their faces turned pale. The crystal warships and divine emperors who were attacking lost their morale. They could not wait to kneel down and worship him. They were like arrows at the end of their flight, unable to penetrate through the silk cloth. Their speed of attack decreased again. They couldn't be blamed for being afraid. There were 2 kinds of nascent soul cultivators and soul formation cultivators who had laws of different grades. One kind controlled a law of heaven and earth, but it was extremely pure and vast. A typical example would be Divine Monarch Ice Mirror, who specialized in the extreme cold mystic ice law. It was one of the strongest ice laws. Once it was used, it could freeze a planet with life, exterminate all life, and cut off all life. It was far stronger than ordinary divine monarchs of the ice laws. The other kind controlled many kinds of laws. Divine Lord Boundless was said to have infinite laws. Although it was a bit exaggerated, he had at least a dozen or even dozens of kinds. The great evolution law created by the teacher of the ruins of immortality was also in pursuit of such a realm. But if one was greedy, there would be many kinds of laws. Many kinds of laws weren't pure enough and their level was extremely low. Divine Lord Boundless had infinite laws, but most of them were only below the 9th grade. What he used was the fact that laws were interdependent and interdependent. They circulated endlessly, making it difficult for the enemy to break them. How could he be like Jiang Tian? Not only did he control many types of laws, but they were also incomparably pure. Every type of law had reached an extremely high grade. Moreover, all of them had formed an avatar-like celestial phenomenon. Even in the Big Dipper constellation, it was rare to see such a phenomenon in 10,000 years. It was simply heaven-defying. Go. Jiang Tian raised his hand and pointed in the air. Everyone saw it. The divine image of Earth-winged dragon threw its head back and roared angrily. Its scaly dragon claw-shaped hand grabbed a huge stone cauldron that looked like a strange stone, then turned into a brilliant stream of light and shot toward the right side of the army at a speed comparable to the speed of light. Rain Dragon of Thick Earth arrived first and caught up with the enemy in the blink of an eye. Standing in midair like a giant cauldron, it raised the entire cauldron of chaotic source rock above its head and smashed it at the 100 crystal warships of the 10,000 troops on the right. At that moment, the air exploded and the sky shook. Even the chaos was overturned and the energy was extremely terrifying. The entire stone cauldron seemed to be unstoppable as it pushed through the entire array of crystal warships that was about 100 kilometers long. Fire rose to the sky and explosions were earth-shattering. Giant fireworks bloomed in space, dazzling and dazzling. Golden core cultivators and nascent soul cultivators were killed one after another, turning into broken limbs and smoke. At that moment, the crystal ships of the right side that looked like a steel dragon exploded like firecrackers. The indestructible crystal warships that were capable of traversing continents, under the frenzied attacks of the myriad stone cauldron, exploded like fragile eggs. The wreckage of the warships was the eggshell, and the flesh and broken bones of the cultivators were the liquid in the egg. In the end, even the most powerful space fortress was penetrated by the Chaos Origin Cauldron. Under the terrifying heat caused by the collision, the Soul Formation Divine Lord who led the team directly turned into smoke. Again! The thick earth-winged dragon celestial form roared angrily and waved its hand. The myriad stone cauldron flew back into its hand and was thrown out again like an ancient god throwing out a mountain. Slash! As for the Gingjin Divine Emperor, his body swayed and he stepped on the heaven and earth. He crossed 100 miles in one step and charged into the left army. He clenched his right hand and the Gingjin Divine Law condensed into a 100-meter-long saber. It was like a saber cutting through water. One slash could destroy all lives and the sun and the moon. Under the slash of the saber, countless crystal warships were directly split apart in midair. The cut surface formed by the 100 refinement gold was as smooth as a mirror, reflecting the shadows of the stars and the space battlefield. Then, one after another, they exploded. Half of the entire left army was destroyed. What? The two armies are going to be annihilated. This is only his clone. How can it be so terrifying? At that moment, many cultivators from other planets in heaven and earth screamed in fear as if they had seen a devil. Chapter 1770. Strictly speaking, the Earth Dragon and the Gingjin Divine Emperor were only the manifestation of laws. They weren't Jiang Tian's clones. Clones had independent consciousness and thoughts, just like a second life, but they were highly obedient to the main body. Even if the main body died, the clones could still survive and continue the main body's consciousness and life. However, Jiang Tian's divine forms were actually controlled by his immortal will. They were more like puppets. Once Jiang Tian died, they would also slowly disappear. At least, without the command of his immortal will, they wouldn't be able to fight anymore. However, those divine forms were too powerful. Under the control of Jiang Tian's vast immortal will, their attacks were also too smooth. So, they were even more terrifying than normal clones. He's too powerful. Even the manifestation of the heavenly laws is so terrifying. At that moment, even Evil Moon and Sir God Ice Mirror revealed a terrified expression. For the first time, they regretted following Han Ming Zongzi to attack Earth. Who would have thought that such a terrifying grand cultivator would exist on a small planet that had been in decline for 100,000 years? For the first time, they started to doubt if the entire Beihan sect was strong enough to kill Jiang Tian. He controls many kinds of laws, but he can only use two kinds of long-range attacks. His main body must be very weak and can't use his full strength. Let's kill him while he's weak. While Evil Moon and Bing Jian were still in a daze, the ancient Mang divine sovereign, who was hiding in the crystal ship, let out a loud roar to remind everyone. I don't need to use my full strength to kill you. That Jiang Tian sneered. Suddenly, the divine disc spun and turned into a Kunpeng. Then, it spread its wings and swept across the 9 heavens and 10 earths. As if it was shuttling through 10,000 realms, it suddenly broke through the void and disappeared from its original spot. In the next moment, it swept past thousands of warships and broke through the walls of the crystal warships. It directly arrived above the Gu Mang Divine Lord and stretched out its hand, directly grabbing the Gu Mang Divine Lord's head. Fear appeared in the ancient Mang Divine Lord's eyes. He shouted crazily and all kinds of laws surged, trying to break free. However, Jiang Tian clenched his hand and pinched his head, causing it to explode on the spot with a bang. His head shattered like a watermelon as red and white matter flowed out in all directions. In the end, even the god in the divine treasures was crushed, and not even his corpse was left behind. So far, 2 of the sect leaders of the 4 major divine sects had been killed. All the divine transformation realm elders of the Boundless sect and the Northern Baron sect had been killed. After killing Sir God Gu Mang casually, Jiang Tian swung his palm and blew up the entire spaceship from the inside with a punch. After that, he unleashed the extreme speed of the Kunpeng again. He traversed dozens of miles of void and arrived next to Sir God Xiaoyu like a ghost. Run! Sensing that Jiang Tian was approaching, Sir God Xiaoyu screamed in shock and patted the flying centipede that he was on. The 8-winged soaring centipede was an entire 300 m long, and its entire body was enveloped in space that rippled like water. Its figure was indistinct and illusory, and it seemed as if it could leap out of this world at any moment. The flying centipede was originally one of the strongest space divine beasts in the universe. Although it was still a distance away from the top space divine beasts such as the Kunpeng and the real dragon, it was no small matter. A purebred 18-winged soaring centipede from a distant ancestor could even engulf space, destroy a vast star, form a black hole, and travel freely across the universe, as well as attack the 9 heavens and 10 earths. Although the 8-winged soaring centipede only possessed the ancient bloodline and had 8 wings, it could still traverse 1,000 miles of void with 1 wing, hide its body, and escape from an army of 10,000 soldiers. Hence, among the Sir God Xiaoyu was the one who was least afraid of Jiang Tian. If he couldn't defeat him, he could flee far away and avoid him. However, at that very moment, Sir God Xiaoyu felt terrified when he sensed Jiang Tian's terrifying speed. He didn't dare to be negligent. As he controlled the 8-winged soaring centipede, he waved his right hand and the terrifying black-red full moon behind him flew across the sky like a meteorite. It drew an arc and headed towards Jiang Tian. That full moon was an ancient demon-suppressing heavenly prison he had taken from the depths of the Milky Way. It was essentially a 9 Serenity Death Star. It was said that countless primordial fiend gods had been imprisoned in the primordial times of the universe. There were a lot of remains, bloodlines and dharma laws left behind, which were extremely fierce. He had refined them with the blood of tens of thousands of cultivators for thousands of years before they became his life golden elixir. After he entered the nascent soul level, he turned them into dharma laws and heaven form. Because it was too evil, dark, dirty, vicious and lifeless, it was called Evil Moon. It had once killed dozens of normal soul formation cultivators. Because of that, Sir God Xiaoyu became famous in the Big Dipper and was notorious for his fierceness. Once Evil Moon appeared, countless evil dharma laws turned into fiend gods, which let out howls like ghosts crying and wolves howling. They dashed towards Jiang Tian. They were 100 feet tall, with 2 horns on their heads and a pair of giant bat-like wings on their backs. Some of them had white bones like zombies, some had tendons and muscles, some had rotten intestines, some had blood-red eyes, some had only 1 eye and some had only 2 empty eye sockets. They even had peerless spears or broken swords in their hands. All of them were surrounded by fiend chi and death chi, giving out a fierce and bloodthirsty smell. "Get out of here," Jiang Tian flicked his sleeve, causing lightning to form at the bottom of his sleeve. Countless azure-colored bolts of lightning that were like enormous dragons, and they were extremely young and unyielding, capable of suppressing evil and suppressing devils. They surged out violently like a great river, and they transformed into a vast sea of lightning that completely blasted apart those divine spells, causing them to be electrocuted into ashes. Oh my God! Divine Lord Evil Moon turned pale and shouted. He was really scared. He didn't even have time to take back the Evil Moon Dharma laws and activated the 8-winged flying centipede to escape. Forbidden Region. Jiang Tian reached out with his right hand and directly performed the sea-calming ice god Dharma laws, forming a supreme territory. At that moment, the entire universe stopped. The Dharma laws froze in the void, and the spaceships that were originally charging around were suspended in the air in shock. The Dharma laws that were shot out suddenly stopped. Even the nascent Soul Realm and Gold Core Realm cultivators suddenly stopped. The 8-winged flying centipede that was flying at high speed in the void froze in the void out of nowhere. With Jiang Tian as the center, within a radius of a few hundred miles, time seemed to have stopped flowing. An extremely shocked expression froze on Divine Lord Evil Moon's face. He has mastered the law of space, and his law of space is extremely high. It is far higher than the flying centipede's law. Even if he is a deity-grade nascent soul realm, it is impossible for him to be so terrifying. Could he be the legendary son of a real god, a deity from the 9th heaven? Divine Lord Evil Moon was terrified. Jiang Tian didn't say anything and threw a punch. Divine Lord, please spare my life. At that moment, Divine Lord Evil Moon couldn't break free or fight back. He could only wail and beg for mercy. Too late. However, Jiang Tian's expression was indifferent and his eyes were cold. He still punched out without giving up. Clang. Jiang Tian's punch was too terrifying. The mighty punch that shook the universe turned into a green light pillar that pierced through the heavens and the earth. It destroyed Divine Lord Evil Moon's body, divine treasures and deity easily. Even his divine soul was killed by the power when it tried to escape. In the end, even the 8-winged flying centipede was blown up by Jiang Tian's punch. Its black hard shell, green blood and colorful organs flew everywhere. Evil Moon, the sect master of the North Pole sect, a supreme sect in Mizang Star Zone, died. At that moment, the sea-calming ice god Forbidden Zone disappeared. The entire world seemed to have come alive and continued on its original path. However, the entire starry sky was in silence. Everyone stopped what they were doing and looked over while trembling in fear. Even Divine Lord Ice Mirror turned pale, as if he were in an ice cellar. He felt cold from head to toe. Even the anger of his son, Bing Futian, was extinguished. All that was left was fear. Gu Mang and Evil Moon, 2 divine lords at the sect master level, had died. They had been killed by Jiang Tian in the middle of an army. Countless nascent soul cultivators, golden core cultivators and soul formation cultivators around wanted to save them, but they couldn't. The power that Jiang Tian had just displayed was more than terrifying. It was earth-shattering and could push the universe away. Boom! In the void, the laws rumbled. A black and red evil moon and mountain phantoms appeared, like a mirage that was both real and illusory. Suddenly, they emitted a bright light, then slowly dimmed, and finally disappeared completely. That was the Dharma laws created by the death of Divine Lords Gu Mang and Evil Moon resonated with the world, making it sad. The more powerful a soul formation cultivator died, the more powerful the Dharma laws resonated with the Dharma laws in the world, and the more terrifying it was at the same time. At that moment, countless people were scared out of their wits and the entire star ocean was shaking. Even divine lords at the sect master level like Evil Moon, Gu Mang and Wuya had been killed by Jiang Tian easily. What about the others? They wouldn't be able to withstand a single blow. At that moment, the situation on the entire battlefield had been reversed. The troops on the left and right had been killed by Jiang Tian's 2 divine forms and the troops in the middle had been severely damaged. What was even more terrifying was that there were only a few soul formation cultivators and divine lords left. Retreat! Divine Lord Ice Mirror struggled. He clenched and unclenched his fists. In the end, he gritted his teeth and gave an order. Under the incredulous gaze of billions of people on Earth, the few remaining space fortresses fled to the outer space with crystal warships that seemed capable of dominating the world. They were as panicked as stray dogs. At that moment, Earth was boiling. Chapter 1771. In the vast sky of the universe, the frozen gales whistled. On the battlefield, corpses of ships, weapons were strewn across the battlefield. Countless broken limbs covered the entire extraterritorial battlefield. More than half of the coalition forces of the 5 holy sects of the Mizar star area, which had come aggressively, had been annihilated. Only 2 semigod realm warriors, including divine sovereign Bing Jian, were left. When they fled, they were so embarrassed and panicked. They were no longer arrogant. What shocked everyone even more was that the elder of the Beihan sect, who was supervising the battle in the space city, didn't stop or interfere when Bing Jian gave the order to retreat. Instead, he was the first to leave with the space city. Apparently, he was also extremely terrified of Jiang Tian's strength. This meant that not only was Jiang Tian able to kill the 4 affiliated divine sects, but he was also able to intimidate the Beihan sect, the top divine sect in the Mizang planet region. Everyone was shocked at once. Countless people on Earth looked up at the light screens sent by Dharma artifacts, or used space telescopes or space detectors to witness this historic moment together. Even though they didn't know many details of the battle. But they knew that the 4 vassal immortal sects had been defeated, scared, and even finished. The 4 divine sects were defeated by Senior Kong Teichu just like that. Hanch Divine Prince, Chen Shiferi, Yuan Jiankong and Elder Pan Xing couldn't believe it. Hanch Divine Prince was Han Ming Zongzi's right-hand man, so he knew how powerful and terrifying those affiliated sects were. So, he was also the most shocked. And yet, the sect masters of the Boundless sect, the Beihuang sect and the Arctic sect had all died. Their grand elders and soul formation cultivators were all killed by Jiang Tian, leaving only the nascent soul heavenly lords alive. In the end, only Divine Lord Bing Jian, the sect master of the Snow God Hall, was still alive, but he was also severely injured. Jiang Tian's battle record was glorious, terrifying and peerless. It had never appeared in the history of the Kai Yang star field. It could be said that he was the first person since the beginning of time. It could be said that he was completely capable of suppressing the ancient times and dazzling the present. Even if they weren't completely wiped out, they were almost completely wiped out. Their vitality was greatly damaged, and they won't be able to make a comeback for the time being. Chen Shi's pretty face was filled with shock and surprise. She heaved a long sigh of relief. All the foreign cultivators watching the battle in the central hall of Tianqing School were speechless. Everyone knew that if Han Ming Zongzi stopped here and didn't take any further action, he would definitely be killed. When the 4 vassal sects were defeated, a new overlord of the universe had risen from this hot land, straight to the 9 heavens. Not only did he dominate the solar system and the Southgate star system, but he was also the ruler of the entire Milky Way galaxy. He even overshadowed the radiance of the Big Dipper star region. In time, he would be like the ancient sages on the ancient deity land and earth. He would dominate the universe, bathe in endless glory and shine for billions of miles. Earth had 2 powerful divine lords and was already worthy of being called a cultivation planet. And because of Jiang Tian and his wife, the Tianqing sect and the Jiang family would also become the most powerful and sacred sects and families in the Milky Way. Thousands of immortals would pay homage to them and they would dominate the star ocean. They would stand for thousands of years and not fall for 1,000,000 years. How fascinating! He raised a backward planet that had just recovered its spirit chi 5 years ago to the status of the most powerful cultivation planet in the star ocean with his own strength. That's what a real man should do. Yuan Jiankong and the others looked into the sky with admiration in their eyes, as if they were believers looking at their faith. They couldn't wait to be in his place. Even though they couldn't do it, they wanted to. Even Han Ming Zongzi can overshadow him. Han Shenxi's eyes were full of admiration as he enunciated each word clearly. He was Han Mingzongzi's right-hand man back then, and he made the final decision, leaving the most colorful footnote for the battle. Many cultivators from other planets who had surrendered looked into the sky with trembling, shocked, and respectful eyes. There was a man enveloped in an endless aura. His chaotic energy filled 10 miles, and he stood in the universe like a god. Everyone was in a state of panic. Jiang Tian had almost wiped out the 4 affiliated divine sects in less than an hour. Han Mingzongzi was extremely talented and powerful. He had dominated the star ocean in the past few years and had colonized more than 100 planets with life. But if he had fought against the 4 affiliated divine sects alone, he wouldn't have won so easily. However, while Han Shenxi was happy, he was also a bit worried. As Han Mingzongzi's right-hand man, not only did he know the terrifying power of the Beihan sect and the 4 affiliated divine sects, but he also had a deep understanding of the Beihan sect's power and influence. The 4 affiliated divine sects had been defeated, but the Beihan sect hadn't shown its real trump card yet. Besides, without mentioning anything else, the Rainbow Wings Fairy of the Banished Immortal Palace, one of the top sects in the Alcade starfield, had already married Han Mingzongzi. The 2 sects had formed an alliance that spanned across starfields. They were of the same breath and branch. Why hadn't they done anything since the beginning? Announce that Earth has won and the day ban has been lifted. Everyone can come out of their bunkers now. Keynes, the commander-in-chief of the Earth Defense Coalition Forces, said excitedly at the headquarters of the Black Eagle Federation. In the past few years, Earth had built a lot of defense arrays to defend against the invasion of the monsters and to deal with the changes on Earth. Once there was chaos, all the people on Earth would hide. We won. We won. When the news was spread, the entire Earth was in an uproar. Countless people came out of their bunkers and went to the streets, holding a large portrait of Jiang Tian and celebrating. He's a supreme divine lord given to us by God. God bless Earth. With the Taichu Divine Lord, Earth will be safe. Many people were so excited that they looked up to the sky and laughed heartily, hugging their heads and crying. Even more people were prostrating themselves in front of Jiang Tian's statue. It was as if they were facing a real god. As for the fans of the cultivators from other planets who had claimed that Jiang Tian would lose, they were like deflated balloons and couldn't be arrogant anymore. I'm afraid the Myth Alliance will punish us. With Jiang Taichu's cruel, overbearing, and vengeful personality, how could he spare us? There were rumors that the captain of the Huaxia Defender Alliance, Cheng Tian, had joined forces with the special intelligence agencies of various countries to investigate and capture the people who were trying to confuse the people's minds during the alien invasion. Many officials and media also supported this. For example, the global cultivation historian Peter Chen spoke publicly on the media, slamming the table and denouncing these people as traitors. They weren't as simple as fans, but had a far-reaching plan. They were defeatists who had lost their integrity and extremely selfish and sinister opportunists. They had not only betrayed Kong Taichu, but also betrayed the entire human race and Earth's civilization. They should be sentenced to death for crimes against humanity. There was also another piece of news that the Myth Alliance might take extreme measures. After the investigation was completed, the list of these traitors would be made public all over the world. Furthermore, anyone who killed the traitors would be deemed innocent and would be rewarded. Isn't that a rat crossing the street that everyone wants to kill? It's rumored that everyone has the right to kill him. It's too scary. For a moment, these fans were scared out of their wits. They never thought that the Myth Alliance's countermeasure would be so extreme and terrifying. Within an hour of the news being released, tens of thousands of people surrendered. After all, the officials could still convict them according to the severity and nature of the case through trial procedures. They wouldn't be sentenced to death. Once they fell into the hands of angry people, they would be torn to pieces and trampled into meat paste. While Earth was in a state of jubilation, in the battlefield outside the planet, Jiang Tian suddenly said to the Dharma artifact, "Keynes, you're too reckless. Ask everyone to go back to the bunkers." The war has just begun. At this moment, Jiang Tian already sensed an extremely strong aura coming from extremely far away. It was more than 500,000 kilometers away. However, Jiang Tian could clearly feel the terrifying energy. On one hand, it was because the demon god Jiang Tian's divine soul had reached the great accomplishment stage. His divine sense was as vast as the sea and as thin as a strand of hair. More importantly, the enemy's aura was strong and his laws were pure. He had far surpassed Bing Jian and the other strongest divine emperors. Is this the real power of the Beihan sect? Zhao Xueqing also stood up with a short blade. Her face was unprecedentedly serious as she looked into the depths of the universe. Chapter 1772. What? The war has just begun. There's more. Keynes was startled. Then he suddenly realized something and yelled, "Tell the world to take cover immediately. The war isn't over yet." Hanch Divine Prince looked at the black dots on the light screen that were getting bigger and bigger. He was terrified and said, "It's Yuntian Palace. Han Ming Divine Prince is here. No, there's also the Banished Deity Hall, the Feiyang sect and the Wuji sect. Qiji." The 4 black dots came at an extremely fast speed. At first, they were the size of soybeans, then they were the size of basketballs, and then they were the size of millstones. In the end, they filled the entire line of sight and occupied the entire light screen. It was as if the 4 suns were connected to the sky, shining with boundless radiance. Under its radiance, the many sky fortresses and warships were incomparably small, like chicken eggs under Mount Tai. When he saw Cloud Sky Palace approaching, Emperor Bing Jian stepped out from his bastion. His face was stricken with fear and he fell to his knees. "Master Han Ming," he said, his voice trembling, "I have failed my mission. I have failed my mission, and I deserve to die 1,000 deaths. But please show mercy, Zongzi. The enemy is simply too vicious. I've tried my best and there's nothing left to fight. If we keep fighting, we'll be wiped out." Divine Lord Ice Mirror, who used to be an unparalleled giant in the Sea of Stars, was truly terrified at the moment. He was cowering like a quail, as if he were a sinner facing a supreme emperor. He was humbling himself and begging for mercy. Trash. Soldiers are trained for 1,000 days to be used in a single moment. If it weren't for my protection, your sect would have been destroyed by the enemy. Without my support, what right does the Snow God Hall have to stand among the top 10 divine sects in the Mizang planet region? Tried your best? That sounds nice. Have you fought to the last person? Are you dead? An angry roar came out from the Yuntian Palace. It was Han Ming Zongzi. Suddenly, the Dharma laws in the universe trembled and the great path wailed, as if it were also frightened by Han Ming Zongzi's anger. Reporting to Zongzi, Kong Tichu is. Divine Lord Bing Jian's face turned pale. He was terrified to the extreme. He did not expect Han Ming Zongzi to be so angry and wanted to explain. Even Bing Futian was killed. You don't even want to avenge him. Instead, you run away without a fight. What use do I have for a piece of trash like you? Die. Han Ming Zongzi spoke again. His words were like the laws of heaven, and the endless Dharma mercilessly attacked. With a bang, the majestic divine body of Divine Lord Bing Jian, along with his divine treasures and divine body, shattered like paper. Zongzi, I'm sorry. Considering that I've been fighting in the Sea of Stars with Zongzi over the years and that I've been rather loyal to you, I'd like to ask Zongzi to show mercy and spare my remaining soul for me to live on. The entire Snow God Hall can be removed and be incorporated into the Beihan sect. Bing Jian's god soul was freed. It was half real and half illusory. While he was trying his best to escape, he was screaming and begging for mercy. His screams were like the cries of a trapped beast. They were extremely tragic and filled with fear and despair. They didn't sound like the voice of a human being. Loyal? Go to hell. Han Ming Zongzi was full of contempt and mockery. He did not show any mercy at all. With a gentle sweep of a massive amount of precepts, he crushed Bing Jian's divine soul like a towering wave crashing into a paper boat. This time, the sky went silent. Zongzi, please spare my life. We want to fight to the death, but we have to obey Divine Lord Bingjian's order to retreat. I'm willing to die for you and fight until the last drop of my blood is gone. I'm willing to go to the universe battlefield with you, Zongzi, and destroy everything on earth. Then, many nascent soul heavenly lords and golden core warriors of the 4 divine sects trembled and knelt on the ground. They were extremely anxious and wanted to show their loyalty to Han Ming Zongzi. You're too weak and cowardly. I don't need you anymore. Han Ming Zongzi snickered with disappointment and disdain. The heavenly cloud palace in space suddenly roared. Many of the talisman arrays emitted an endless amount of light. It was like a huge boulder crushing down on the army of the heavenly snow temple. In an instant, the ships were crushed like fragile eggs under the weight of Mount Tai. After an attack, the entire army of the snow god hall was destroyed and they were removed from the divine sects of the Star Ocean. Han Ming Zongzi gave you your lives. He certainly knows you're no match for Kong Teichu, but he wants you to exhaust his Dharma power with your lives. You didn't do it, so that's a serious crime. We'll let the other 3 divine sects go for now. Bing Jian and the Snow God Hall are unforgivable. We'll kill all of them. With the Yuntian Palace in the lead, the 4 space cities continued to move toward Earth at a speed comparable to the speed of light. The arrogant and sarcastic words of the rainbow-winged fairy reverberated in the air for a long time, suppressing the souls of every cultivator, causing them to feel extreme fear. We wish Han Ming Zongzi a victory, kill Kong Teichu, wash Earth with blood and successfully colonize this planet region. Han Ming Zongzi is powerful and famous in the Star Ocean. He'll rule the Star Ocean for thousands of years. The remaining cultivators of the 3 divine sects stayed where they were. They looked at the broken limbs of the cultivators of the heavenly snow hall, the wreckage of the ships, and the weapons that were scattered all over the starry sky. Grief and sorrow welled up in their hearts. This was the cruel reality of the cultivation world. Although they were already godlike existences in the mortal world, and mortals were just ants in their eyes, in order to pursue a higher realm and status, they could only follow the strong to conquer the sea of stars and obtain more resources and opportunities. And in the eyes of a peerless overlord like Han Ming Zongzi, weren't they also ants? However, under the peerless pressure of the cold and ruthless Han Ming Zongzi, they did not dare to get angry, nor did they dare to refute or condemn him. Instead, the fear in their hearts became even stronger. They lay on the ground like ants, kowtowing like chickens pecking at rice. I should have expected this. Han Ming Zongzi has colonized hundreds of planets with life since he started conquering the Star Ocean. He has never been defeated like this. Especially on a backward planet that has just recovered its spirit chi. How can he bear it? In the main hall of Tianqing School, Hanch Shensi shook his head and smiled wryly. He knew that Jiang Tian was really in danger this time. Hanch Shensi, it's hard to say who will win this battle. Han Ming Zongzi has been cultivating around Earth for 2 years and has already connected with the grand Tao laws of this world. He's like a natural god and the ruler of this world. He seems to be an invader, but he actually has the home field advantage. Chen Shiferi thought about retreating. Her face turned pale and cold sweat flowed down. She said with her immortal will. Not only that, he's also asked for help. Gui Yufan, the Zongzi of the Banishing Deity Hall, ranked 32nd on the galaxy list in the past 1,000 years. He can destroy a planet like Earth before the recovery of spirit chi with one attack, and the winged thunder silver wings on his back are even more terrifying. Do you think Zongzi Qinyu of the Limitless sect and Zongzi Zhongshuan of the Feiyang sect will come? Chapter 1773. Yes. Golden light flashed in Hanch Shensi's eyes as the Dharma laws around him rumbled. It was a natural reaction caused by an unstable Tao heart. He pondered for a while, then sighed and explained. He pondered for a while and said, "The tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. Kong Teichu is too strong. Han Ming Zongzi's life goal is to kill geniuses and dominate the Star Ocean. The stronger the Tai Chu Senior is, the stronger Han Ming Zongzi's desire to kill him. I'm afraid he's already regarded Kang Taechu as his greatest enemy. Similarly, the stronger the resistance, the stronger the suppression. If the Taichu Divine Lord hadn't been so strong when facing the sect masters of the four divine sects, Han Ming might have only called his brother-in-law, Gui Yufan. However, the strength displayed by the Grand Primordium Divine Lord is already on par with Han Ming's. He also understands the principle that a goshawk will do its best to catch a rabbit. Naturally, he will summon all the galaxy list prodigies in the solar system. Qin Yu, Zhongzi of the Limitless sect, 28th on the galaxy list. Zhang Xian of the Feiyang sect, 25th on the galaxy list. Oh my god! Chen Shiferi couldn't hold on any longer. Her legs went soft and she couldn't even stand properly. She said in a trembling voice, "Let's run. We still have a spaceship with enough supplies to fly to the Sirius galaxy. From there, we can also hide our identities and find some of the heads of the snakes in the universe. Then we can cross the sea of stars and escape to the depths of the galaxy." She couldn't help but feel annoyed. She didn't think that Jiang Tian was weak. In fact, in her opinion, Jiang Tian's talent was enough to dominate the entire Big Dipper. She just didn't expect that Jiang Tian and Han Ming would be so extreme. Both of them were ambitious and overlord-level figures, and they were completely at odds with each other. They were resolute, and ruthless. Neither of them took a step back, nor were they the slightest bit weaker. It only took a dozen days for the battle to reach its climax. In fact, if Jiang Tian had planned slowly, it would only take 100 years, no, maybe 10 years for Jiang Tian to be able to wrestle with the entire Big Dipper invaders. Can you escape? If Han Ming Zhongzi breaks through Senior Taichu's defense line, his fortress and city will be 10 times faster than our ship. A trace of sadness appeared on Han Che's handsome face, but before he could finish speaking. At this moment, a domineering voice reverberated in the void. "Kang Taechu, you deserve to die." That voice seemed to come from the depths of the universe, and it was filled with the vicissitudes and vastness of countless years. It was like the voice of a god. It was very light, but it was as if billions of meteors had struck the earth at the same time. It instantly shattered the firmament and tore apart the thousands of laws and great Tao that were as heavy as steel plates. It was as if a thunderclap had exploded and reverberated in the ears of everyone on Earth. At that moment, on Earth, countless people screamed and wailed. They couldn't bear it and prostrated themselves on the ground. Even Han Che and the cultivators from other planets who were guarding Tianqing School couldn't withstand it and were on the verge of collapsing. At this time, everyone felt that Han Ming Zhongzi's strength was more than 10 times that of sect master Han Che and the others. He was simply the legendary omniscient, omnipotent, and meticulous. He had really integrated with the world as one, as if he was the chosen one who had been blessed by the heavens. "I deserve to die?" Jiang Tian chuckled as he stood on the battleship. With the stars in the sky as the background, he looked handsome, like a deity who had descended to the mortal world. In the next moment, Jiang Tian waved his sleeves, and the laws of nature vibrated. Terrifying gales erupted in the sky as he questioned coldly. He said coldly, "If you want to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext. I, Kang Taechu, have never offended you at all. You're the despicable one who instigated the Big Dipper monsters to wreak havoc on Earth and try to occupy it. More than 100,000 cultivators have died because of you. Are you the one who's guilty, or am I? Kang Taechu, you're too short-sighted." Han Ming Zhongzi finally walked out of the Yuntian Palace. He was wearing a simple Taoist robe without any armor. His hair was loose and his feet were bare. He looked very handsome and confident. Instead of killing intent, he was like a flowing breeze and unruly clouds. With a trace of mockery, he looked arrogant as if he was looking at a country bumpkin. He said, "You were born on this planet after all. You're like a frog at the bottom of a well. You don't know the vastness of the world and the vastness of the star ocean. There are countless star systems in the Milky Way. Among them, there are at least 100 cultivation planet regions like the Big Dipper planet and countless civilizations. Different civilizations have been suspicious of each other and have been fighting for thousands of years. planet regions have been destroyed in the war and billions of creatures have turned into dust. What I did was to stop the war with war and conquer all the planet regions. In the end, I unified the star ocean and became the master of the Milky Way. In this way, I could stop the war in the ultimate sense and achieve eternal peace. There would be no more wars, no more suffering, no more orphans and widows. The people and the worlds in the universe would enjoy a prosperous time. As for you, Jiang Taichu, you ruined my grand plan for 1,000 years for your own personal gain. You're unforgivable and deserve to die. Ridiculous. Jiang Tian laughed and said mockingly, "That's a nice way to put it, but you really want to set up a monument for your chastity. Let me ask you, even if you want to achieve peace between the planet regions and unify the Milky Way, why isn't it led by the human race on Earth? Why isn't it led by me, Kong Teichu? You're just a native of a remote galaxy. You're as vulnerable as an ant. What right do you have to take on such a great responsibility? How can you convince the others?" Hanming Zongzi sneered and shook his head as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. What if I'm so overconfident that I'm willing to show up for the Star Ocean and become the master of the Star Ocean? Jiang Tian laughed and said, "Then, I'll stomp you into meat paste, swallow your body and nascent soul and refine your divine soul. Let's see if you're still qualified." Hanming Zongzi stared at Jiang Tian and said viciously with an extremely strong murderous intent in his eyes, "Oh look, after all that talk, the one with the bigger fist will be the boss." Jiang Tian looked back at Zhao Xueqing and said, "Qinya, remember, a cultivator only pursues the path of immortality. He doesn't care about the common people and is free and unfettered, as far as Jianghu. The emperor is good at both civil and martial arts, serving the country and the people. In fact, it's just a fight for power and profit. The two should have nothing to do with each other in the first place. Whoever dares to talk about serving the country and the people in the future will be the scum who cultivates but has the heart of the emperor. They'll be the jinx who provokes the calamity in broad daylight. They'll be the scum of the universe." Jiang Tian's words were said for Zhao Xueqing to hear, and even more for Han Ming to hear. "Kong Teichu, how dare you?" And Han Ming, whose thoughts were poked, could not help but be furious in his heart. In the hearts of people like Han Ming, there was no real concern for the common people and the people in the world. They regarded themselves as gods in the human world and regarded human lives as ants. They could easily destroy clans, sects, countries and planets. In the vast sea of stars, they were like locusts passing through, invading and colonizing everywhere, extracting endless resources to improve their cultivation. Once the spiritual energy and resources of the stars were exhausted, they would abandon them, allowing the stars to explode, the planets to fall, and billions of lives to perish. Jiang Tian retracted his gaze and flicked his sleeves, revealing a jade-like white fist. He waved it and said, "Han Ming, you're too arrogant. Isn't it just a competition of fists? How do you know that my fist is not as big as yours? You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.